You to the top.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Ms. Matias, we are live recording and streaming. You may proceed with this morning's public executive review session.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals review session for July 27, 2026. Please be reminded that no public testimony is permitted during the review session. The first items up are adjournments. 12693BZ, Volume 3, 1225 East 233rd Street, the Bronx.
Okay, in this one, the applicant failed to make its submission and it is being administratively adjourned.
Do you want to make it a final or anything, or?
No.
No, okay.
This
Item number-
Isn't this the first adjournment? This is the third one on 12693?
Well, no, well, we had to do a second call, remember, on another day for.
Right. So this is the second one, but not.
The second
consecutive.
adjourn, yeah, okay.
Okay.
Item number 2, 2025-35A, 5012 Highland Boulevard, Staten Island.
Okay, even though there have been 3 prior adjournments, the proposed project would require a bulk variance in addition to or in lieu of a GCL 35. So until the variance application is processed, this particular application will be adjourned.
Item number 3, 2026-07BZ, 1508 Eastern Parkway, Brooklyn.
Applicant made its submission well after the submission due date and it is being administratively adjourned.
Postponements. Item number 4, 700-85BZ, Volume 2, 97-38 99th Street, Queens.
Okay.
Item number 5, 2026-06BZ, 511 West 25th Street, Manhattan. Sorry. Decision items. Item number 6, 608-85BZ, Volume 2, 3356 11th Street, Queens.
Okay, so applicant submitted revised documents. Everybody had the chance to look at it and is satisfied with the submission. Okay. I would like to then make a recommendation to approve this 10-year extension of term and amendment to prior board conditions with following conditions. And that is, hours of operation will be from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and Saturday and Sunday from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. Trucks will load and unload inside the building whenever possible. Always, that's the priority. And if not possible, to load and unload inside the building, they will load or unload at the curbside parallel to the curb. After loading and unloading, trucks may be parked in the driveway located in the side yard, but no loading and unloading will occur there. Overnight, 3 trucks are parked, will be permitted to park in the driveway located in the side yard, and 2 trucks can park inside the building, and the remainder are parked off the site. There will be no operations permitted on the sidewalks, and the trucks will not stand on the sidewalk. They are once they are loaded or unloaded, and certificate of occupancy shall be obtained within 2 years of the date of the grant.
Motion to approve, Chair Shonda.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta.
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta.
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Application has been granted. Item number 7, 96487BZ, Volume 4, 786 Burke Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, I hope everybody had a chance to look at the latest the last statement of fact that was submitted. There were some errors that were noted, and those were revised. So the applicant is not proposing any change to the hours of operations, and the applicant has submitted a latest set of photos showing the site conditions being improved. There was junks that were stored along the lot lines. Some of the slats were missing. They have striped the parking spaces. I though was hoping that I would get the photos of the banners being removed. I didn't see that. But given the fact that the applicant has made significant improvement in this short period of time, I'm going to recommend, if everybody's okay with it, that we grant an extension of term of 10 years and this is the question I have for the commissioners. Do you want this date of expiry to be from February 6, 2020, which would mean 6 years has gone by and they will be left with another 4 years? Or should we just start from now?
Ms. Pranga's hand is up when you're ready.
Yeah, Ms. Prenga?
I just want to note, those items were not formally submitted to BSA. They were just sent to BSA staff. So if you're ready to vote, I would like the applicant.
Okay, so
to
let me do a
formally
second call. Let
submit.
me do a
Yep.
second call on this, and this will give the commissioners to review all the latest set of documents. Yeah. Okay, we should-
So I just,
The microphone.
I just noticed that, well, I did notice during my review that in the last set of photos, some of the vehicles, while you're showing the striping of the spots, some of the vehicles do not have license plates. Since we are going to recall it, I think a brief statement with regard to that would be helpful.
Yeah. As we know it, that there's a certain number of parking spaces that are set aside for monthly parking, and then there are certain sets of parking spaces that are set aside for vehicles awaiting repair. So at no point there should be any unlicensed vehicles parked in this parking lot.
That's, yeah.
Okay.
We'll have to reopen to accept the documents if they're not officially submitted.
Why? Okay, well, they can always submit yeah, but we had kept the record open for them to submit the revised statement of facts and plans and other things.
Oh, okay,
So this would be a correction of that.
okay, yeah. Sorry.
And
So we
when,
would do a second call on this. Go ahead.
and just to continue the conversation about the license plates, the community board voted after the initial hearing, and the condition that was requested is that we prohibit the sale of cars on the site. So just to add that to the
They,
list, prohibit the sale of cars on site. That's the community board's request, that should we grant it, that we add that condition.
Okay. So there is sales of cars happening.
That is not what I think the community board said, but they did ask if we grant it to make sure there's a condition that sale of cars is not permitted.
Yep. Okay.
Move
All
on.
right. So applicant, please take note of it and make those corrections.
So we'll second call this after.
Yeah, we will say, and it would be heard at the end of the hearing.
Okay. Item number 8, 2021-51BZ, Volume 2, 133-25 37th Avenue, Queens.
Okay. Just give me a minute. This is an extension of time. We did not require any submission. So a motion to approve a 2-year extension of time to complete construction and obtain CO.
Chair Shonda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Shetta,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Application has been granted. Item number 9, 2025-22BZ, 51 Little West 12th Street, Manhattan.
So, first of all, I want to just inform everybody that pursuant to the recent changes in the state environmental regulations, the SECRA with an S, the subject application is a qualified action and in accordance with Secra Section 8-0111. So the applicant has revised the plans and added notes regarding BSA not waiving any permitted obstruction and BSA's approval for this, for the use change for a specified zoning floor area, in addition to the flood regulations and not waiving any of the permitted obstructions. So those notes have been added. There is an E designation that has been placed on the zoning map pursuant to section 11-15 of the New York City zoning resolution for the subject property, and hazardous material assessment should be coordinated through the mayor's office of environmental remediation. And everybody's satisfied with all the submissions that were made? Okay. And there was a last set of drawings that was just circulated this morning. I hope everybody had a chance. That has all the latest sets of conditions. Okay, so I want to make a motion to, oops, come on, my screen is jumping. With the following conditions. BSA is only waiving the use regulations to permit residential use for a total zoning floor area of 8,000, residential use for a total zoning floor area of 8,687 square feet, and for a total building zoning floor area of 11,378 square feet. Any building height, and the building height shall be limited to 105 feet. The BSA is not waiving any permitted obstructions, including zoning resolution sections 43-23 and 43-42, and DOB will determine whether such obstructions are permitted as of right. DOB will ensure compliance with other applicable regulations of the zoning resolution, including but not limited to floor area deduction, height, and setback. BSA is not waiving flood regulations. Applicant must comply with the applicable flood regulations and the and subject to DOB review and approval. Is everybody okay with that? Okay, then motion to approve.
Chair Shanda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Shetta, Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Application has been granted. Item number 10, 2026-03BZ, 116 Edgecombe Avenue, Manhattan.
Ms. Benke, are we ready to proceed on this one?
We're still waiting for DEP.
Okay,
If you want a second call, we might
Will-
hear more today.
we will do a second call. We're waiting for a sign up from DEP regarding hazmat. The phase 2, the outcome of the phase 1 report.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appeals calendar, new cases, item number 11. Excuse me, 2026-10A, 467th Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, so everybody please bear with my lengthy report. So this is an administrative appeal challenging Department of Buildings denial to convert pursuant to zoning resolution section 52-83, 3 existing non-conforming static indirectly illuminated advertising signs to static digital copy advertising signs located in an M19A R12 Special Midtown South Mixed Use Zoning District. So as the action states, these are, the site is a corner site. It has 3 advertising signs. Each sign has a static image and is indirectly illuminated. Sign A faces 7th Avenue, which was approved in February of 1999 with a total surface area of 550 square feet. Sign B faces West 35th Street, which was approved also in 1999 with a total surface area of 550 square feet. And sign C is a rooftop sign, which was approved in January of 1998 with a total surface area of 625. Now, the site was then, which is 1999, zoned M16, located within the Special Garment Center District. Per applicant's statement, at that time, the advertising signs were allowed, and there was no restriction on size illumination, and it was governed by zoning resolution section 42-52 then. So I would like the appellant to provide the applicable garment center regulations and the sign zoning text regulations that were applicable back in 1998 and 1999, and also provide the 2001 text amendment and the associated City Planning Commission reports. So since 1998, 1999, zoning regulations changed and the site was rezoned. So the significant changes were in 2001 and then in 2011, and these changes restricted illuminated or flashing advertising sign, surface area of signs, and rooftop signs. So effectively, all these changes made these three existing signs a legally non-conforming use. And hence they were grandfathered pursuant to zoning resolution section 52-61. And nobody is contesting the grandfathering part of this sign. I have a question for the appellant. That is, at the time of DOB filing, 2018 zoning regulations were applicable on the subject site, and the sign was regulated pursuant to zoning resolution section 121-20, where all signs would have to be subject to C64 regulations. So my question is, why was the first ZRD1 referring to sections from 4200? Is it the grandfathered rules, or what was the reason for including that? So please clarify. So with regards to the timeline of the DOB filing, it started in May of 2025 when the appellant submitted its first ZRD1 to convert these three signs from static indirect illuminated to static LED digital signs. That means they are directly illuminated pursuant to zoning resolution section 52-83. So initially, DOB did issue an approval of the ZRD1 with 4 conditions. Then appellant proceeded to file 3 applications, and those were approved by DOB in June of 2025. However, July 2025, DOB objected with an intent to revoke the applications on the ground that, quote, digital display is a creation of new nonconformity or an increase in the degree of nonconformity, unquote, based on what was stated in the construction documents, which indicate non-flashing digital signs that rotate images every 15 seconds with 6-second fade transitions. And subsequently, there's been back and forth between the appellant and the DOB, and there was a ZRD1 determination was concluded that the replacement of any indirectly illuminated advertising sign with a directly illuminated advertising sign is an increase in the degree of illumination, and therefore is contrary to zoning resolution section 52-83. So the final issuance of DOB's denial was April 17th of 2026, and appellant filed this application. So before I get into a lot of other things, I need some clarification. And I'm going to start with the very basic thing that to me is a question mark because I did not see any documentation that supports it. And that has to do with the definition of a flashing sign. And then for that, I need DOB to clarify. On July 28, 2025, based on the construction document, DOB considered the proposed sign to create a new nonconformity or increase the degree of nonconformity. If it considered these signs as non-flashing signs, what made them non-conforming? And then my second question is, what makes a sign that rotates images every 15 seconds with 6-second fade transition a non-flashing sign? Where is it codified? Does DOB rely on a TPPN or a case law? Or is there an internal memorandum of understanding? So please share those information with us. As I read 1210 definition of flashing sign is a sign that is, quote, illuminated, that i.e. indirectly, rotating with changing light or color effect, unquote. And that includes fade transition. The definition further distinguishes flashing sign that indicate weather, time, temperature as not flashing sign based on 3 factors, and one of which is, quote, color or intensity of light is constant, except for periodic changes in the information displayed, which occur not more than frequently than once every minute, unquote. So wouldn't the proposed sign qualify as a flashing sign, since the display time is minimum of 15 seconds with a minimum of 6 seconds of fade out? Now, this follow-up next question is for the appellant. I need the appellant to respond regarding the mismatch in the way the ZRD1 and the construction document describes the signs. Per construction document provided by the appellant, it is a, quote, a non-flashing digital sign that rotates images, as I stated earlier, and the appellant in its ZRD1 calls it a, quote, LED static digital light non-flashing. So please clarify that. So with regards to DOB's August 12th, 2025 determination, DOB relied on zoning resolution section 42-633, which allows indirectly illuminated advertising sign and not directly illuminated advertisement sign. ZRD1 concluded, and I quote, that non-conforming signs may be replaced provided that there is not an increase in the degree of non-conformity, an increase in surface area, or an increase in the degree of illumination in accordance with zoning resolution section 52-83. While zoning resolution 1210 defines an illuminated sign as a sign designed to give forth an artificial light or reflect such light from an indirect source, ZR 42-633 specifically states advertising sign with indirect illumination are permitted in manufacturing districts, with no allowance for advertising sign with direct illumination provided. The change to LED that directly illuminates the sign is an increase in the degree of illumination. So I need clarification from DOB. First of all, why was zoning resolution section 42-633 relied on when then the applicable special garment center district section 121-20 stipulated sign regulations were subject to C64 district? Now, since in C64 district advertising signs are not permitted, the grandfathered sign indirectly illuminated advertising sign should have been considered as the baseline. Wouldn't a directly illuminated sign that rotates image every 15 seconds with 5 seconds fade transition be then contrary to zoning resolution 52-83, and one doesn't have to look to 42-633? If zoning resolution 42-633 was used as a reference to see what would be permitted in an M1 district, then the text needs to be clear that advertising sign with indirect illumination is permitted and not directly illuminated advertising sign. So appellant is challenging, now I go to what the appellant is challenging. Appellant is challenging DOB's determination because DOB ignored the non-conforming use provision of zoning resolution section 52-83 and the definition of non-conforming use in zoning resolution section 1210 in order to treat different illumination methods as different uses, and makes the following argument. And the arguments are directly and indirectly illuminated signs are not different uses. 2, the plain meaning of zoning resolution controls and requirements cannot be read into the text. 3, signs in C64 district may be indirectly or directly illuminated. So I'm going to look into all of them together instead of parsing them out. In its December 22nd, 2025 determination to uphold the hub reversal, Assistant Commissioner Keith Wen stated the following. However, the proposed changes from signs with indirect illumination to illuminated sign would result in creation of a new nonconformity of signs, and this is because the zoning resolution regulates advertising signs based on 4 types of illumination. 1, non-illuminated sign. 2, signs with indirect illumination. 3, illuminated signs. 4, illumination with changing display, called flashing signs in the zoning resolution. So I won't read all of it. I'm sure you have all read it. And the appellant there then says at the end, okay, so sorry. Appellant on page 5, paragraph 5, in a statement of facts states, in commercial districts, signs fall into two categories. Non-advertising signs, zoning resolution 32-62, and advertising signs, zoning resolution section 32-63. While non-advertising signs are permitted in all commercial districts, advertising signs are permitted only in C65, C67, and C8 districts. The same, and I want to emphasize the word same, regulations governing size, location, and illumination apply to both categories, zoning resolution section 32-64 through 32-69, with distinction not noted with relevant. Now, regarding the last sentence, the regulations governing size, location, illumination, while these broad categories may be same for both non-advertising and advertising, each of these categories are further distilled as stated by Assistant Commissioner Wen. It distilled the illumination into 4 subcategories, and I would say from least intense being 1 to most intense being 4. Similar to use categories with additional conditions like U and P in zoning sections, use regulations, all the chapter 2s, where the term performance standards is also used. And based on my review of all the information provided thus far and the CPC report N980135ZRY, there are 2 sign categories: sign or signs other than advertising, formerly known as accessory or business signs, and advertising signs. So, which are regulated with respect to surface area, illumination, height, protection, and location. So my question upon the way it was reviewed by DOB and the appellant is stating is this. My question, first question is for DOB as to why was use emphasized and not performance standard? Per 1210 definition of non-conforming use, it states, a non-conforming use shall result from failure to conform with applicable district regulations or either permitted use groups or performance standards. The term performance standard is not a defined term, but it is used in the zoning resolution predominantly associated with additional conditions for use groups. So if you look at it and Google it, you will see and do a search on performance, it is always associated with conditions associated with uses. So applying the definition of 1210 for non-conforming use, which, quote, results from failure to conform to the applicable district regulations on either permitted use or performance standard, unquote, and the 1210 definitions of signs with indirectly illuminated where it, quote, illumination is derived from an external artificial source and is so arranged that, and I emphasize, no direct rays of lights are projected from such artificial source, versus illuminated sign where, quote, gives forth any artificial light or, and I want to emphasize, reflects such light from an artificial source, are distinguishing factors and therefore establishes the performance standard and the intensity, and thereby the intensity of lighting, and less of a use thing as I see it. However, there is an issue. That's all I want to say. But the approach, I'm not sure I agree with DOB's approach. With regards to the intensity of light, performance standard also dovetails with intensity of use. With regards to intensity of lighting, one has to look to zoning resolution section 42-633. While the text does not use the term intensity of lighting, it is evident from the way the regulation seems to support it. By allowing a bigger surface area of sign for accessory or advertising signs with indirect illumination compared to illuminated or flashing sign other than advertising sign. So the text was, the writers of zoning resolution was very mindful of the distinction between illuminated and advertising and address the size of the signs accordingly. So the application of, um, and so another part is applying the change of non-conforming uses. So general principle, as I understand it, regarding change of non-conforming use to conforming use is to either retain the same use or step down to a less intense use or conform to what is permitted. Now, these regulations, as I discussed earlier, would indicate that the performance standard of a directly illuminated sign is more intense than an indirectly illuminated sign. So in my opinion, I see it as a non-conformance of performance standards than use and an increase in the degree of nonconformity thereby. I also am not convinced that this is not a flashing sign unless DOB has an internal practice memo TPPN to support this. So just as a point of reference to understand the intensity of illumination that is permitted in C64 district, it is basically permitted in Times Square and theater districts. So that's the intensity of lighting, of flashing signs and other things. And of course, it has much higher degree of intensity that is permitted in a standard illuminated sign. I will just say that, just put as a reference point. Now, with regards to the lighting study that has been provided to address the C finding of zoning resolution section 52-83, I had difficulty comparing the foot candle and the lumen. Does DOB have an established standard of measuring intensity of the lighting? In the absence of such a standard, how is DOB determining that illumination level is consistent in zoning districts outside like theater and Times Square district and meets the standard direction? What is the standard for standard illuminated sign or indirectly illuminated sign? And this goes to the question that the appellant in his statement of fact, page 7, para 2, states that taking the position outlined in the determination to its extreme, DOB could argue that any minor modifications such as replacing bulbs or switching the fluorescent to LED constitute the creation of a nonconformity merely because it changes the method of illumination. To avert such confusion, DOB should establish a standard for typical illumination and indirectly illuminated signs and what constitutes a flashing sign. As I see it, based on the information provided, proposed signs are illuminated flashing advertising sign and would be contrary to zoning resolution section 58-83A because it is a flashing sign and increases the degree of nonconformity based on the performance standards. I'm holding out on C until finding C of this section until I fully understand the study provided compared to DOB's established standard, though I am leaning towards the fact that may not meet C as I read the intent of the zoning resolution text. Sorry about that. Vice Chair Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. I found that very helpful. I did read both the applicant and the Department of Buildings papers. I asked for a bit of clarification in the most Richard Feynman simplest form possible. I asked both sides to answer the following 3 issues. What zoning resolution sections do they believe apply to them in this case? Including laws that define what a flashing sign is, and are any of them unambiguous? If there is an ambiguity, what is the most reasonable reading of it as supported by other laws and regulations? And finally, if we were to adopt their interpretation, would this lead to an absurd result? And I'd like that to be answered by both applicants. There are many arguments that were made by the Department of Buildings that I found to be very compelling, including that, there are no prohibitions of advertising. There's no advertising signs are prohibited in C64 districts. So but the rest of the zoning resolution does show how certain changes to these signs create more stricter regulations. I'd like that to be expounded on a bit. And the final argument that I think that the applicant needs to respond to was that even if these changes do not create a new nonconformity, they intensify the existing nonconformity. And the degree of that nonconformity, which would be prohibited by zoning resolution section 5283. I have nothing further to add at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown, Commissioner Otley,
Commissioner, move
please
the
take
mic,
the
please.
mic.
Okay, so the big issue that I have with this case is that I feel that DOB may want to regulate the degree of illumination and make a determination that this non-conforming sign is not complying with 5283 because it's increasing the degree of illumination. But the way they get there, I have questions with. And specifically going towards the definition in 1210 of an advertising sign, it just seems like the definitions of advertising sign, flashing sign, and illuminated sign in 1210 are far simpler than DOB is making it. And I'm wondering how DOB got to the position of taking advertising sign, which is just very simply defined as a sign that directs attention to a business, profession, commodity, service, or entertainment conducted, sold, or offered elsewhere than upon the same zoning lot, and is not accessory to a use located on the zoning lot, which clearly these signs are. But how does DOB then make a continuing definition that has to do with whether or not it's directly lit, not lit, indirectly lit, or flashing? I don't get that jump. And I don't see it in the zoning resolution. And so that's my biggest question with the DOB arguments right here, is how they get from A to B to actually get to their resulting C. As to whether or not this is a flashing sign, I think that we have at the BSA over time have had cases that have questioned what is the trigger that changes a non-flashing sign to a flashing sign. And it has to do with the time that the copy is displayed. And it's also something that can be very easily altered through computer programming. And so I'm not even sure why this would be an issue that would result in a reversal of a previous determination. Because if the DOB determined that this sign was changing copy too quickly, they can just issue that as an objection, and then the applicant or the appellant in this case would come back with some kind of rejiggering of the timing that would be compliant with DOB's requirements. And I don't see that that's a deal breaker in this case.
I
So
just need them to clarify.
no,
the
I know. I'm just saying that these are my opinions upon reading it. That would be, so that's basically my issue. As far as I look at this, the zoning resolution, I think the definitions are very clear. And therefore, being that they're very clear, I don't see the reason to go on to create new text to complicate the situation. And so at this point, I don't find the DOB's arguments very compelling. I am more sympathetic to the appellant. And once again, and I've said this historically, and I'll say it again, I don't like to see that DOB can make a determination that's a pretty senior DOB employee, a commissioner makes a determination, and then it seems to me that DOB maybe receives pressure from the outside. I don't know what's going on with DOB, but then they try and reverse it. And it's the reversal of the previous determination that becomes very tortured in its reading of the text. And that I have an issue with.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Shetta?
Thank you, Chair. Let me start with some clarifications about what's been indicated in my three colleagues' comments. The first one is the ZRDs. We have 3 ZRDs. The first one was approved. And after that, I believe there is a permit that was issued with construction drawing. The second one was denied, and the reason for the denial was a claim that the degree of illumination because of the direct illuminated LED sign will be increased. And then the third one was denied, not just on the increase in the degree of illumination, but on the increase, on the claim of the increase in the degree of nonconformity because of like the compared regulations that applies to another zoning district. And they concluded that a direct illuminated sign is kind of like more non-complying or non-conforming sign than an indirect one. And I understand that, but I'm not sympathetic with this kind of argument. That being said, I share your comments about that we need to get it clear from DOB and the applicant which zoning resolution clause or section govern these signs currently at the time of the application for this first DRD and when they were constructed. That's like a startup for that application. Then the second point I want to say that I kind of understand why DOB initially issued an approval, and I believe they found out later on that they were missing something. That's why they issued the second one. But I believe they didn't read the documents that were submitted to them carefully, because at no place in these documents that anything that indicate that the degree of illumination would be increased or even compares the existing baseline illumination to an average value of the proposed sign. It didn't happen. I did read all these submissions. I couldn't see a comparison between the current baseline and the average current baseline and the future like illumination, degree of illumination for the proposed sign. Opposite to that, I actually saw them comparing in one of the lighting studies. We have 3 lighting studies, and I'm not sure which one to follow. In one of the lighting studies, they gave that baseline at like squares inside the subject sign. I believe it was for like 5x5 or 5x4. And they gave the average for all of the readings, and then they give the maximum and the minimum. On the second one, I couldn't follow what's going on. On the third one, I believe I'm talking about the specification from ANC. They compared actually the proposed to the maximum existing, which cannot happen. If you're comparing the proposed to the maximum existing, you have other spots within the sign footprint where that maximum baseline is not there. You have something significantly less than that maximum, and you should, if you want to compare the future ones to the existing ones, we should compare the future illumination to the minimum current illumination. This is the way it should be done. I believe that. I hope the applicant is listening well to this, because this is very important thing. I also noticed that there are contradicting messages in the applicant submission between after the first DRD. If you read through the construction drawings and you read through the DRD itself, you're gonna read this static copy of an image. Static copy means the existing. It doesn't change. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the size. It doesn't change the color. It doesn't move. It doesn't go away. It doesn't fade. It doesn't do anything. This is what static copy means. But if you look at drawing, if you look at Exhibit A, page 21, yeah, this note here.
Oh, not that one. What is it?
the proposed sign will be non-flashing. Okay, digital images with S shall appear for a period of no less than 15 seconds. It could be 16 seconds, it could be 60 seconds, it could be 600 seconds. But it's digital images. And it's gonna appear for no less than 15 seconds, followed by an interruption for no less than 6 seconds. Again, it could be 7, it could be 60. And that means that you're gonna have an image, and then a second image, and then a third image, probably fourth image, and so on. And these images could be different colors, different illumination, different glare. And I believe the moment you read this, you immediately switch to a flashing sign. It's by definition, because that definition, and in the statement of fact, if you read the statement of facts, that applicant actually indicated that or described the proposed sign as going to be rotating images. And the definition, like the face value of the definition of the flashing sign, it says it's a sign that with evolving, rotating, or blah, blah, blah. If it's rotating images, it's a flashing sign. If the illumination is changing, if the color is changing, if you have color effects, if you have illumination effects, it's a flashing sign by definition. So I believe this.
No, this has actually been decided by BSA and other cases. It's not conditioned on whether or not there are changing images. It's how long the image is displayed before it fades out and a new image takes over. And there are actual second duration limitations that are put on a sign that changes it from flashing to non-flashing.
So that you're saying that the BSA modified this definition here?
It's not BSA. I think there have been cases, and this is the question I have. I don't know how they're
Have you cited the Brooklyn?
No, there
No,
I
there are-
don't
there are-
remember
there
the
are-
cases, but it's like the certain seconds, like it's got to be at least
It has
be
been,
displayed for like 20 or 30 seconds.
I don't
Okay.
recall of any signs that I've been part of where that came up. But
I think that would be a great question.
that is
to
the question,
the
that is the
applicant
question.
and DOB,
Right.
if they can give us a
What's the
precedent.
That is the question I have raised, is what is the standard of determining what is a flashing sign and what is not a non-flashing sign? Because like you, as I'm reading it, without any supporting documents, I'm contesting this to be a flashing sign too, because it is changing and all of that, and the change of color. But DOB must have a standard if that is not being raised at all, but we need that documentation.
DOB actually in their commissioner letter at the very end indicated that
Right,
even if
consistently-
this nodding, like considered as a flashing sign, it's gonna do such and such and such. So I'm not sure why it is not considered as a flashing sign. Do they have like a TPPN in
They-
place
that's- I think
that they
you're-
play with?
Those-
Yeah, no, those are really
those
good
are the
questions.
questions.
An explanation for that.
I'm just saying that I believe it has already been determined, because I believe we did go through these issues about 10 years back when it was discussed that signage technology is changing and there's going to be a move towards digital signage, LED signage across the industry. And so that's why this came up. And as I said, I don't remember the exact seconds that were used as the threshold of when it jumps from non-flashing to flashing. But it was definitely something that DOB grappled with at the time. And you kind of can see it in a very restrictive area, which are the illuminated signs on the arterial of the Upper West Side Highway, the West Side Highway, where there is a transition from static, old-fashioned, painted, like billboard signs to LED signs that are changing, and they fade in and out across like 30 seconds, displaying several different unrelated copies, like could be a movie and then health insurance and then liquor, but it just fades slowly. And that seems to be where we're moving.
Can I proceed?
Go ahead.
Thank you. So my next question is this: when looking at that lighting study, I totally understand that they, like I said, they divided the signs into squares. They took readings at the centers of these squares at 5 feet away from the face of the sign. and they gave us each reading. They also gave us the minimum, the maximum, and the average, and the measurements here in lumens. And if you go to the end,
That's it.
I'm not sure if this was the document I'm referring to, but I believe there is another version of that. When I saw like another part of the, like the lighting study that says Keystone, and it has a mathematical model that represent the three signs with the indirect illumination, like units placed in like a coordinate system. And I believe they ran some sort of an analysis, and they gave us some readings. I didn't see a comparison between what they modeled and the existing baseline. We need to see that if they, I believe, just going to DOB saying that this is the baseline, you know what? After we finish construction, you can come by, we can do measurements, and we can assure you that the measurements are not exceeding the existing baseline. I believe it shouldn't work like that. It should be like any engineering task. It should be a model at the beginning, then expect or like predict the future lumens, compare them to the baseline, and then with these model results, prove it when you finish construction. And even with doing that, like given the proposed signs are going to be LED, which the illumination, the images, the duration could be changed using computer, like easily from an office anywhere. I'm not sure how can DOB like control that or like enforce law against these signs if that existing ones are like non-illuminated. I'm sorry, indirectly illuminated. The next point is I'm asking the applicant to explain to us again why these signs are not considered flashing, like taking into account 1210 definition. This question goes to the applicant, and it goes also to the DOB. For DOB, that they claimed in their letter to us that the comparison is done between the current illumination and the average future one, or the average existing illumination and the future one. No, it didn't occur using the average. It did occur using the maximum. If DOB is going to compare, I would commend them to compare using the minimum, since the applicant indicating that the future ones, the illumination is going to be changed, is not going to be changing significantly.
I think I want to get us out of the whole technicality of how DOB is reviewing it. The bottom line is there is a confusion as to what, we don't know what DOB standard is. That's really the question before DOB, is what is DOB standards in assessing no degree of change in the illumination? And what is the minimum standard of illumination that is required? Let's keep it at that.
This is at the heart of what we're doing.
Well, we are not here to review, we are not here to review DOB's document.
We're not reviewing it.
Our review is based on the final determination, not anything else, to be honest with you. Any of the reasoning that went in the hub approval, the then reversal, and the third reversal, we really are only supposed to be considering the final determination and the issues that were raised in the final determination. That's our charter mandate. That's it.
But we have in our archive three lighting studies that indicate comparison between the existing illumination
But
and
the-
the future one.
But that's there to support the fact that they complied with what DOB required at the time to determine whether or not this was a legally non-conforming sign and whether or not the changes would not disturb the legal non-conforming status of the sign. That's all. It really isn't for us to sit there and go through the actual content of that report and question DOB's final findings as regarding those lighting reports.
Let them review it. I don't know look at it.
Okay,
If it's
okay,
useless.
all right.
Historic
I don't know look at it.
facts.
Okay. Let Commissioner Sheta finish the statement, but all I would say is that I do think all the documents that DOB has provided is important, which is lining up with what is appellant challenging and how did DOB arrived at its conclusion. And so it is important for us to look at all the ZRD ones that were reviewed, and with each ZRD ones, we kind of see a new established definition and standards of analysis to establish why this is a non-conforming sign. I do think it is important because I went through that effort to understand where DOB is landing. And the next question is, what is the appellant proposing? What is the appellant challenging based on? And our job is to answer whether appellant is right in those statements. And for that, if we have to use supporting documents of what DOB has provided, to an extent, yes, but not for us to analyze. Again, I think I'm repeating myself.
It's not up to us to advise DOB
No, it is
to,
about
to do such and such. It's their practice, it's
It
not
is a
ours.
parameter within which we can. We can tell DOB to, DOB needs to establish some standards. It is there in the zoning resolution. So per zoning resolution, it is absolutely right for us to ask DOB, what is zoning resolution, what is the standard that you are using to do all of this analysis?
The reason I'm looking at
This
this
is not there.
is the second version of the ZRD was denied, not on the ground of increase in nonconformity. It's not that. It's on the claim from DOB that there is an increase in the degree of illumination, not nonconformity. Read the ZRD well, and you're gonna see that. And if this is the case, it's important to look at how DOB did it. Did they compare apple to apple or apple to mango?
Okay,
That's
all right. So your approach is, okay, fine. Your approach is, what did they use to come to that conclusion? Okay. Is that all, Commissioner Sheta?
Give me 1 second, please. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Commissioner Yoon?
Given that discussion, you may have similar comments for me, but I find that we are talking about two findings. One is an increase in the degree of nonconformance, and the other one is an increase in the degree of illumination. So I have a lot of technical comments on finding C as well, but I'm going to start with finding A. I agree with DOB that this is an increase in the degree of nonconformance based on the zoning regulations, because the zoning regulations make it very clear in several instances that directly illuminated signs are subject to a higher degree of regulation and limitation and are more restricted, and their placement and size is much more considered than indirectly illuminated signs. This is similar for advertising and non-advertising signs. They're separate, but when it's more limited, when it's more regulated, it implies that in this instance, directly illuminated signs are potentially more adverse to their surroundings than indirectly illuminated signs. Why else would they regulate them more and prohibit them in more districts? So for me, it is clear that the A finding was not met in 5283, and that this is an increase in the degree of nonconformance. DOB has made a series of mistakes that have been confusing, including the issuance of the first ZRD1 to me. But the C finding, they claim that this is also an increase in degree of illumination, but I believe they fail, or the documents fail, to show whether it's an increase or not, because this is an actual technically measured value that you can get. Illumination is how the human eye perceives light, how it impacts our light. It's not just a narrative description or a qualitative feeling. It's something that you measure in illumination. So it gets technical because some of the lighting, the big shine lighting study, converts foot candles to lumens. They're completely different units. So lumens are, you have a 60-watt incandescent light bulb that produces 800 lumens. You could put it in a dark room or at a tall ceiling. The resulting light we get on the desk here, that's the foot candles. That's what we're perceiving. And so, we have to study this in architecture school. So, there's like some refresher I needed to do, but this is something that we should be able to measure. And I think in defense of what Commissioner Sheta is saying, There is some sloppiness in the review of the increase in degree of illumination. So one point he's making here is that this Big Shine Energy lighting study that was submitted as part of the ZRD1 indicates a minimum and a maximum and also an average. This is a view of the billboard cut into basically 5x4, 5x5 squares. So they take a reading from each of these squares, and that's how they're able to create these minimums, maximums, and averages. The applicant then says, let's take the maximum and use that as the illumination of the overall new sign. And that will be not an increase in the degree of illumination, but as you can see here, it is widely varying. And if you look at the photos of the signs, which are provided also, there are hotspots where, these are illuminated by floodlights that are, standing off. So there are hotspots. So they're taking that one hotspot and saying, so the rest of the sign should actually be illuminated to the same degree that this one hotspot is. DOB should have caught that and understood that this is not an apples to apples comparison. This is not going, and also the units are not matching. So how are you possibly going to know if this is an increase in the degree of illumination or not?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, can you show the other study that you're referring to when you talk about comparison? Just to make it clear to the board members,
Oh, like
the ANC specifications and how they compare this to the other one.
sorry, you're saying this study or the?
Yes, this
yeah.
study, VSE, they compare the maximum here
Yeah, like the
to
650 here.
the other ANC specification
Yeah,
study.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in the proposed specs that we received, this is outside of the ZRD1 exhibits. They show, I mean, again, there's a switching between luminance and illumination. Here, well, before I get into that, I just wanted to agree with what Commissioner Sheta is saying, is that the appellant and the proposal is to take this highest value and say that that's the maximum we shouldn't actually exceed, but that is not, the average is 282, not 648. So it's a bit misleading, and I think DOB should have caught that. Commissioner Sheta believes they should use the minimum as the baseline value. I think an average probably makes sense, but beyond that, when you get to the proposed spec.
Can I just say from what both of you are saying is that there seems to be a lack of standard in what has been used by DOB in assessing this.
Yes.
No, I disagree. I believe DOB doesn't, they are confused.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yes,
There is no.
Not about how to apply this, how to digest it, how to understand it. That whoever looked at this.
I think a better way to state this is that for DOB to analyze it, these signs are more common signs than the signs that you see in Times Square. Times Square is much more regulated, but these signs do not have that level of regulation that is codified in the zoning resolution. So
You're talking about the existing ones.
I'm talking about
The proposed for this site.
yeah. So like, I just want to say something. When you go to the
No.
zoning resolution and what's in this theater district, the signage requirements in the theater district is very specified and codified.
Okay,
Whereas the signage allowance, lumen allowance, direct or indirect lumen allowance is not at all codified in the zoning resolution. So all the questions that all three of us are asking is completely based on the fact, what is the basic process DOB uses when it is reviewing construction documents for direct signage or for indirect signage? And as Commissioner Otley Brown is saying, that there is somewhere it has been codified that if you maintain certain time frame, it is therefore considered not a flashing sign. Where are all these documents there? So when a document is submitted to DOB for these drawings, it has to be based on certain standards and methodologies that has to be brought in by DOB for the applicants to use to determine, hey, this is the process, this is what you required, this is what I've analyzed, this is what it's saying, and this is what I'm proposing. And DOB can say, yes, you're right, no, you're wrong, because this is the requirement that we require. And that's where the gap, and we are all struggling with that. And I think that is the question DOB needs to establish going forward.
Okay,
Uh,
if I
It's not
could
there.
finish,
Go ahead.
the finding 5283C is this an increase in the degree of illumination? How would you answer that without some supporting technical documentation?
So, Mike, I
And that's
agree
a
with
question
you.
for DOB to answer,
Right,
but
and I agree with you. And my take on it is when I'm reading the way the text is written and a directs versus indirect, the intensity of it is, as you also stated, very clearly indicates a direct lighting is more intense set of lightings than an indirect set of lightings. And that itself means that, that means it's increasing the degree of illumination.
by description in the regulation.
Category.
That description, however, for DOB then needs to translate that into a method or a process for practitioners, for the sign businesses to be able to proceed. And what is that standard practice that has been instituted?
But
I think there are.
in addition to that, the standard practice has to be based in the zoning resolution, and it can't be that DOB is inserting sentences to make its final determination seem valid.
I think some of our commissioners are suggesting, though, that a mere categorical description of indirect versus direct does not make conformance or non-conformance or an increase of the degree when you could have a decrease in luminosity in the change of light from an indirectly illuminated sign to a directly illuminated sign and actually have a net decrease in foot candles. So just saying indirectly illuminated to directly is categorically an increase in the degree of nonconformance.
You
I
can
think some
have
of
a
our
direct
commissioners have an issue.
illuminated sign with less lumens than an indirect one. That's possible.
That's what they're saying they're proposing,
That is what they're saying, and I'm of the.
which is why I think it's worth looking into.
And
Was
the
it-
question of, is the change in and of itself categorically an increase in the degree of
I think it
nonconformance?
needs to,
In the way the zoning resolution, I'm reading it, I'm saying yes.
I think it fails to meet the A finding, and I think the C finding was not properly evaluated. So I can't say one way
Yeah.
or the other,
Yeah.
whether that was properly determined that it fails to meet it. But the A finding, I think it does not meet. So that, in that sense, I agree with the overall resulting determination. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the flashing sign, because to me, that is not an issue here, because both sides have not, they are in agreement that this is a non-flashing sign. Both the enforcing agency and the appellant. I dug through and there is this note 7, which Commissioner Sheta highlighted earlier. It references a ZRD1, it's not a TPPN, but a ZRD1 of a sign, and it was for the 20 Bruckner History Channel sign, which is now the Uber sign. And in that document, which I found online, it clearly states, it describes what constitutes a flashing sign and what does. So this seems to be, at least per the construction drawings, what is being referenced as a description of what DOB interprets as a non-flashing sign. A display consisting of 15 seconds of static copy separated by 6-second fade in and fade out is a non-flashing sign. Regardless, I didn't think that this was part of what was before us because it is not being contested here and it is not subject or discussed at all.
Static copy or static copies?
Static copy.
Just copy, okay.
So I have a few more notes. Just bear with me. Or maybe I don't. And one other thing I wanted to discuss is that, and this is again technical, but in this idea that this proposed sign would be provide less illumination overall than the existing, the proposed by ANC discusses a max brightness of 565 lumens at 165 nits. So you find out what a nit is, you find out what this all means. And LED signs are varying throughout the day because of the contrast, given, how much sunlight there is. So would these screens vary throughout the day? And based on a few industry websites I looked at and general Google searching, outdoor screens, LED screens tend to operate at 5,000 nits or higher. So saying that the proposed would operate at 165 nits and therefore provide less than the current sign's lumens doesn't seem to make sense because it seems like at 165 nits, which is the equivalent of like a dim computer screen, no one would ever see it. So I think this is a failure in DOB's technical staff to really evaluate the C finding here. But again, I think that this proposal does not meet the A finding. So if it were a one sentence thing, I'd say that I don't agree with the appellant here.
I believe with what Commissioner Yoon indicated it is clear that DOB didn't like
Okay,
do the job right so
Okay.
far.
all right.
The second thing, the reason I was skeptical about if there is a process there is if you look at that letter that we got, it says that the illumination is not a defined term in the ZR. It doesn't need to be there. Like somebody saying speed is not a defined term in the ZR. It's physics. It doesn't need to be in the ZR. Illumination is illumination.
I think,
I-
hold on.
we are not
I-
getting
I-
there.
I don't think that, I think that we already put a lot before the applicant and Department of Buildings to respond to. So I think that it may be during hearing if you want to bring up the point.
Yeah,
But at this
thank you.
point,
And that,
I would
the
strongly
question that I didn't indicate,
Oh.
whether that future sign will be capable of playing videos or not. This is to the applicant, not
As
to
long
me.
as it is not a flashing sign.
Right.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant.
Future signs can, as long as they're not flashing sign by DOB's determination, it can,
I just want to know
I
whether
don't
they
know.
can.
My
play videos or
understanding
not.
of a video is a video is a flashing sign. And if it is maintains a 50-second thing transition, that rate of a video, then it's a video, but it's a non-flashing. I don't know. I mean, that's a DOB call. But the way I read it,
I don't think
well, it depends what you,
It's not.
okay, I'm getting into the other world, but
We're going to-
We're now going to the reality of how it affects the neighborhood.
Exactly.
So let's stop at
Yeah,
this point.
yeah.
Because.
so video will not be permitted because it would be considered a flashing
It's
sign,
not- it's not-
clearly.
I'm asking,
Well-
I'm not saying whether they're gonna play videos.
But you do have signs like Times Square has signs, but they are considered flashing signs. They're considered flashing sign. A video is a flashing sign, equivalent of it.
That's sudden change.
Yeah, it has sudden changes, so therefore it's a flashing sign.
Again, to clarify, I'm not asking whether they're gonna play videos on these signs or not. I'm asking whether they
I think
have the
that's not a
capability to
question.
do.
Honestly, Commissioner,
What
that's
would
not a
be
question
the
before us.
effective Of the answer, how would the
Yeah.
answer effective? They say, yes, we can actually put the World Cup on this sign if we wanted. How would that be an answer?
Say it plays videos. It's a flashing sign. That's it.
Because if they don't use it in that fashion, it's not a flashing sign. And what I'm trying to say, what I said before is flashing, non-flashing can be controlled through computer programming.
That's
Okay,
my
okay,
view. on it.
I-
Thank you.
Again, I strongly, I think that there's a lot before
I
the
think-
applicant.
I think there are three components. One is that there's a question on clarification on flashing versus non-flashing. Please provide the clarification wherever it is codified, please provide that. The second question is the illumination, how is DOB arriving at as the non-conformance and the definition of it? And the other part is the illumination study and how that is being used to identify the C finding. And I think the question here, as I see, Commissioner Otley Brown is very clearly supportive of the appellant's position. Commissioner Yoon, Commissioner Sheta, and I are questioning appellant's position, and we do agree that it does not meet the findings. However, the approach is not correct, and Commissioner Shibetta's questions are more of clarifications for him to arrive at a decision. Is it a fair thing to say?
I believe that.
Okay, all right.
Move on.
Please.
Special order calendar, continued hearing items. Item number 12, 84259BZ, 800 St. Nicholas Avenue, Manhattan.
Okay, we received a committee board letter. According to the letter, the committee board is waiving the right to hold a hearing. In response to board's comment, applicant has revised its submission. Bollards are proposed at the intersection and around the block front, and around the masonry block, proposed masonry block trash enclosure. as existing air pumps and vacuum machines are proposed to be relocated within the property. So I do have some questions. The existing curb cuts, as submitted on 313 plan and then the 714 revised plan do not correspond in terms of dimension. Please clarify and correct them. Latest submission has 32-foot wide curb cuts on St. Nicholas Place and 27-foot on St. Nicholas Avenue compared to 30-foot wide curb cuts on St. Nicholas Place. So please do revise. The existing curb cut located nearest to the intersection of 150 and St. Nicholas Place is proposed to be relocated as directed by the board. Indicate on the plan the distance of the proposed curb cut from that intersection. Also show the existing plan at its current location with note stating existing plan to be with a note on the existing plan showing that the curb cut is to be relocated and show the location of the proposed curb cut, because the way it's showing the proposed curb cut and then it's saying existing curb cut to be relocated. It's confusing. So please do revise that. Due to the narrowness of the site, board had suggested that the total number of on-site parking spaces be reduced to 3. Instead, the applicant is continuing to propose a 6 set of parking spaces, and 3 of them are along St. Nicholas Place and 3 in front of the proposed convenience store. So I would like the applicant to clarify why on such a tightly fit space, applicant is continuing to provide 6 spaces. So also consolidate the existing lumen plan and the proposed lighting plan. There are 2 of them. Applicant has provided an operational plan and both gasoline service station and convenience store are proposed to operate 24/7, 7 days of the week. Those are my questions or comments. Vice Chair Shibeta.
Nothing to add on this application. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Otley Brown.
So it says that the curb cut's going to be relocated, but it doesn't say where. And I've looked at the plans and I don't see where it is. So it's kind of hard to tell whether or not it's going to be in a better place than it is currently. So I have a question about that. And the other one, it says there are 3 parking spaces that are going to be relocated to the narrow part of the triangle, but they don't want them being used. So they will mark them in some way so they're not used. And I don't understand, why would you put them there if you don't want them used? And how would you stop them from being used? And if they're parking spaces that can't be used, then they're really not parking spaces.
Yeah.
So those are my issues.
Yeah. Okay. Commissioner Sheta.
Thank you, Chair. I have nothing further to add.
Thank you. Commissioner Yoon.
Thank you. On the parking spaces, we did talk about it, those 3 at the last hearing, and they insisted they wanted to keep them because they had been there for a while. So I'll just show, this is the revised set of plans with those. I think that's what you're questioning too.
Yeah.
Commissioner Otley Brown, these 3?
Yeah, those
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
It's like, but you're not gonna, you say you're gonna do something so people
Don't use them.
Then why are you putting them there? Then
Yeah.
they're not parking spots.
I mean, at the last hearing, I was like, you should maybe get rid of them because you only need 2 spots here. But then we also did talk about this. So this bubble number 2, this is not dimensioned here, but we had asked them to move it further away from the intersection. So it appears that they have, but we just don't know by how much.
Right.
Oh,
I
so
think-
that's, it was already relocated.
No.
is
So
what
if you look at the existing plan, Commissioner Yoon, if you go back. to
Right,
the-
where they're lined up and they're
Yeah.
saying that the relocated one was them shifting it along. That I didn't get.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's where I want the dimension.
Yeah, you
where
had
it
asked for the
has been
dimension.
what is the distance from that intersection of 150?
And part of that discussion was if we're going to let them keep these 3 spots, then presumably having the curb cut closer here than versus over here would make the
Would minimize the
maneuverability a little bit better and minimize the amount of driving on the sidewalk.
sidewalk, yeah.
But if we, anyway, we can discuss whether they
You know,
need
are
these
these
3.
staff parking? And if this is where only the employees are going to park, then put a sign saying employee parking only.
We also, there were, I had shown photos last time, there were cars parked on the sidewalk here next to the building. So I was hoping for updated photos showing. And there weren't any cars, but I think we should also have have no parking signs put on the walls here. And then the applicant also noted that they were going to stripe the outline of the property. And then at the last hearing, they said they would do that. And now they're saying they'll do it after the construction work is done. That one seems like an easy one to do now. And
Which one
sen-
is an easy one to do now?
Paint the property line on the
Okay. Yeah.
site. And then the last small thing I had is they did move the air and vac like we had requested, and it is now here in the corner. But I worry people are still going to park on the sidewalk in order to access that. So either move it further inward to service parking spot 2, or put bollards along here so that people aren't coming in this curb cut and just parking on the sidewalk to use the air vac. Those are my comments.
Okay,
Oh, one other thing, the statement of facts and findings, the TPPN calculations are based on lot square footage, not floor area.
Oh, okay. That needs to be changed.
They- yeah.
But they're saying they're basing it on floor area.
You had actually picked that up last time too.
Well, yeah, previously they were talking about it being based on a certain type of floor area, the floor area ratio, and now I said, change that, it's
Right, right.
correct, it's lot square footage, they changed it, but now they're saying it's based on floor area. And it's not, it's based
Oh.
on lot square footage.
let me know, move on.
Yep.
Yep. New cases on the SOC calendar. Item number 13, 46758BZ, Volume 4, 1 to 72-11 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Right. So BSA office has reached out to the community board, and the community board states that that they will meet again with the applicant prior to our September meeting to verify that the conditions have been met and are reflected in the drawings. I just want to bring to everybody's attention that BSA's process, especially when it is new cases, is that community board makes its review and then gives its recommendation. The board reviews it and then considers it and then recommends it to be incorporated. If the applicant factors in community board's recommendation, it is still up to the board to make the final determination. We may not accept the community board's recommendation. So it is up to the community board how they want to use their time and process, but this is how the process is. And I think somebody from our office should reach out to the community board and clarify the BSA process. Okay, so this is an application pursuant to zoning resolution section 11-412 to enlarge an existing building, which was subject to a variance granted prior to December 15, 1961, and the term of the extension for the gasoline service station expires in 2029. So the applicant is proposing to enlarge from 2,400 square foot to 3,600 square foot to modernize the existing convenience store and continuing to provide the auto repair area and also customize the waiting area. Now, per zoning resolution 412 on zoning lots where variance was granted prior to December 15, 1961, existing building may be enlarged not in excess of 50% of the floor area of the building occupied as of December 15, 1961. An applicant states that this subject zoning lot has remained unchanged and the proposed enlargement to a total of 3,600 square foot is 50% of the existing floor area. So going into the more of what the operation would mean, applicant is not proposing any changes to the hours of operations. However, during my site visit, I observed that there were 2 self-service car wash machines that were located along the rear lot line. And if I recall, board had not permitted them. So these need to be removed prior to board's decision. Those are my comments. Fire department did issue a letter of objection to granting this amendment until the required fire extinguishing system is installed, tested before a fire department representative and determined to be in good condition. Vice Chair Shveta.
Thank you, Chair. I've mentioned all my notes. Just wanted to add this was a clean site. I have nothing further to.
It is a clean site. Yep. Commissioner Otley Brown?
The only thing I wanted to add was the update about the FDMY, because they have installed this fire suppression system, but right now they're waiting for the FDMY to come, test it and sign off on it.
Okay.
I have no additional comments or questions. I think they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Photographs.
Mhm.
Oh, okay, I missed it. Thank you.
But it hasn't been.
Okay. Commissioner Shatta?
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. One of them is regarding DEC spells. If there is any record for the site for previous spells, please indicate that or address it in the statement of facts. And the second one regarding the concerns, the FDNY, what is the status on them? Regarding the floor area, the proposed is I kind of get confused. In the statement of facts, it says that they are increasing from 2,400 to 3,600, which is 50% increase. And then later in the statement, it says the proposed floor area of the convenience store of the subject will not exceed 2,500 square feet, compliant with the TPPN 1099. So I'm not sure if I got this right. And I did look at the drawings. It sounds like it's 3,600. Not 2,500, so.
But that's the
That is the
total
total.
building, and there's
Yeah.
the waiting area and the ADA bathrooms,
Yeah.
and so that doesn't come into the TPPN calculation. The
Okay.
TPPN calculation is the selling floor area only.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's accessible from customers.
okay, sure, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Yoon?
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you.
Come on. Whoops. Papers are sticking together, sorry. Continued hearing item on the appeals calendar, item number 14, 2026-12A, 463 Bay Street, Staten Island.
Okay, the only outstanding element from the initial hearing was the issuance of the proof of notice of hearing. Applicant has provided a proof of service of hearing notices, which is scheduled for today. And applicant has added a note regarding BSA not waiving the flood regulations to the revised plan. So if there are any other questions or comments, please let me know. I'm satisfied with the application. Vice Chair Shibata.
Also satisfied with the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Otley Brown.
I'm satisfied with the application.
Thank you. Commissioner Shatta.
I saw that they added the flood-related notes. I want to thank them for that, and I am satisfied with the application too.
Thank you. Commissioner Yoon.
Thank you. I'm satisfied.
Thank you.
Okay. New cases, item number 15 on the appeals calendar, 2026-13A and 2016. I'm sure that's a typo. 2026-14A, 4449 North Avenue, Staten Island.
Okay. I did see the proof of initial filing, but I didn't see the hearing notices, so please let me know. This is an application for a waiver of GCL 35 and zoning resolution section 72-01G to develop a two-family residential building at on these 3 lots. So currently the site is vacant. It is 1 zoning lot and it is going to be apportioned to 2 lots. And the appellant has submitted a letter from Staten Island Topo Office for the portion of the final map street, and it is mapped through and it states it is mapped through the private property on lot 486. So all I would say that so far since the mapping, city has not taken any action in acquiring the site to build the portion of Clark Place. Have not received any letter from DOT, but we have received letter from both DEP and fire department stating no objection. So, Vice Chair Shibata.
Thank you, Chair. I know that the committee board is on summer break. I still think they're in the statutory time, so let's hear what they have to say. They are going to meet with them.
I'm sorry, Vice Chair, could you speak into the mic?
Oh, forgive me. So I know that there's no comment yet for the community board, but I believe the community board is on summer break. I think they're still within their statutory time to have a response, so I look forward to hearing that. Other than that, I have no exception to this application.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
I have no questions or comments.
Commissioner Sheta,
Thank you, Chair. I'm satisfied with the application.
okay. Commissioner Yoon,
Thank you. I have no comments.
right.
Okay, so that being the last case, this concludes the review session for July 27, 2026. We'll resume at its 11:32. Want to give 10 minutes? Well, 15 minutes.
Let's take 15 minutes. Let's resume at 11:45.
11:45. Ladies and gentlemen, we resume at 11:45 for the public hearing.
12 minutes precisely.
Carla, mic's off.
Hey, good morning again. Commissioners, please ensure that your microphones are on. Ms. Matias, we are live streaming, recording. You may proceed with today's public hearing.
Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals. Public hearing for July 27, 2026. The first item will be the appeals calendar, new cases, item number 11, 2026 10A, 467th Avenue, Manhattan. This would be Michael Zoltan, Jay Siegel, Joshua Pohl, I think, Felicia Miller. I think that's it. I don't know if there's anyone else. Good morning, Mr. Zoltan. Is there anyone else with the team? I can't hear you.
You're muted.
You're muted, Mr. Zoltan.
I'm in Mr. Siegel's office. To avoid feedback, he's going to speak.
Oh, there's a reverberation. What's going on?
I think they're in the same office. That's why one is muted.
Oh, Jay Siegel. Good morning, Mr. Siegel.
Morning.
Okay, so do we all have everyone here? Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Whoever, do you have everyone here?
Just me.
Just you, okay. And
me.
Mr. Pohl is for DOB. Anyone else? I guess not. I don't know, Felicia's come, okay. Raise your right hands. Raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to the board member questions?
I do.
I do.
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's questions. No.
No.
On this appeals, no?
No.
Okay, sorry, guys, sorry. Because we had started to say we're doing on appeals. The GCL, okay, the other ones, sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry, just this rush of power, I guess, sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, whoever's the lead may proceed. Who's the appellant and proceed? Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Siegel?
Matthias, I'm allowed to proceed now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see
So
you.
I want to start off by clearing up two issues. The first one is the board understandably spent a considerable amount of time in its review session discussing flashing. The definition of flashing that was used in our documents, the 15 seconds to show one display and 6 seconds fade in, fade out, came because we too were familiar with the History Channel case, and we were following what we understood DOB's definition of flashing was. That's not important to us. Right now, we have 3 vinyl signs. Somebody stands up on a boom about once a month and changes the signs. So if we have the right to have directly illuminated digital, whether it changes once every 15 seconds or once every 15 minutes is not terribly important to us. It would be a tremendous benefit, and we would abide by whatever standards DOB defines as flashing, which we understood now is the 15 seconds that were mentioned in our documents. That shouldn't be something that concerns us too much here because we have no disagreement with DOB about it. The second thing I want to clear up before going into specifics is Commissioner Schetter was absolutely right. He found a mistake in the ANC report. We certainly agree that it's the average illumination level that controls, and the Big Shine Energy reports correctly calculate what it is, what the average illumination level is for each of the 3 signs, and we agree that the digital cannot exceed that. My understanding of the process is you don't need a very high degree of illumination at night. Things are dark, it's very low. And during the day and even at night, there's a program which will set for each of the 3 signs. And it will be set at the average so that the signs will never exceed the average illumination level. Now, I want to go and discuss the specific statements that DOB made and their challenges. I just know because you spend so much time in review session discussing these points that it's an overriding concern. So let me now go directly to the 2 points that DOB makes in their papers. I'm not going to go back and talk about the 3 different ZRD1s we got because, except only briefly, DOB has sort of focused on 2 major arguments, and I want to talk about that. The first argument, and we're going to start showing some slides. Michael, my colleague here, Michael Zoltan, is going to help me. And so do we share how do we take the screen? There you go. Okay, we don't need to cover anymore. We passed that.
No?
You've seen the signs. You looked at them a few minutes ago. These are the signs. Go ahead. Okay, just briefly, I'm not going over the history. You did that very, very well in the review session, but right now we are in we're treated, even though we're in M19A/R12 district, the provisions of the special district regulations say where trines are treated as if they are in a C64 district. So everything else I'm saying today is talking about what the regulations are in a C6-4 district. Okay, next. Okay, so this 5283, as you know, is what we're talking about today. And DOB's first concern or allegation is that we haven't shown that we are not increasing the degree of illumination. That's the first judge. They contend that we haven't shown that using the average, at the next slide, please. There's their charge on top. They said we provide no support for the proposition that degree of illumination should be measured by the average amount of light. And they say, now we haven't, because as you said correctly in your review session, there hasn't been an allegation in any of the 3 ZRD1s that we shouldn't use the average method of illumination. But the DOB is now challenging that, saying the zoning resolution doesn't provide for it. And we want to show that it does. Now, in 5283, the concern is that you not increase the degree of illumination. In Times Square, the concern is that you have a high degree of illumination. They want a lot of signage in Times Square. So in the section I cite, it says that it should be lighted with an average level of luminance across the entirety of the surface area of 75 foot candles. And the way you translate foot candles into lumens is a foot candle is the amount of lumens per square foot of the sign. So you multiply by the total square feet of the sign, and you'll get the total lumens for the sign. And then in 2 other sections of 81732, they say where you have a sign that's too big to take a single reading, what you do is you take the several readings of the sign and you average them to get the average illumination level for the entire sign. So what we did, and what we agree should be done, is that, as Commissioner Shetta noted that we took 4x5 portions of each sign, took the illumination levels, took the average, and then you could get the average level of the whole sign by adding up all the illumination levels and dividing by the square feet of the sign, or if you do it in 20 square foot quadrants, you divide by 20 square feet. But there's no quarrel that we get the average, and we agree you have to use the average. So I think this is a provision that perhaps DOB wasn't aware of or didn't focus on when they said the zoning resolution does not provide support for using the average illumination level. Again, in 5283, they want to make sure you don't exceed it. In Times Square, they want you to reach that level to provide the signage that Times Square requires. Okay, next, please.
Before we proceed, can I clarify something, please? Because I
sorry,
think
Carl.
like repeated twice. At no point I did mention that you should be comparing the lumens based on the average value. It's up to DOB, whatever practice they follow, they should follow. But my professional opinion is if you're gonna compare, you should be comparing, since you indicated in your statement of facts that the LED proposed will produce some sort of like uniform lumens. If I'm comparing this, I would be comparing the maximum from the uniform LED to the minimum from the existing now. If you don't want to impact the drivers or the pedestrians with like glare, and that's what should be done. But at no point I did say that you should be comparing average to average, or just want to make it clear. Thank you. You can go ahead.
Commissioner Sheta, if you're talking about, I'm not sure I understood your question completely, but if you're talking about comparing the maximum to the minimum in each sign, I understand that may be important to some people, but as I'm showing in this extract from Times Square, they call that the illuminance ratio. And in Times Square, they regulate that. They say there should be a minimum illuminance ratio of not greater than 3:1. And what an illuminance ratio is exactly what you're talking about. It's the difference in the different illumination levels of different portions of the sign. And that's what they call contrast. And in Times Square, they say, in addition to having an average illuminance across the entire sign, they regulate the illuminance ratio. And in 5283, they don't do that. They just talk about the degree of illumination, and they don't talk about illuminance ratio. So we don't think DOB should be reading into 5283 a regulatory concept that's not present there. That's present in other parts of the zoning resolution, but not in 5283.
But you are saying, because in your statement of facts, you state that the Big Shine Energy Lighting Study establishes maximum illumination levels. I'm paraphrasing. And therefore your proposed signs would be under those maximums. So now you're saying there is support, contrary to what DOB has said, there's support in this chapter 81 to use the average with an illuminance ratio, basically like a uniform distribution ratio from 3:1. And so therefore we should be able to use the average existing.
No. Let me clarify. Looking at DOB did in their papers, they correctly focus on what they think the issue is. DOB says that we claim correctly. They say we claim that you should use the average level of illumination. And they say, DOB's papers say that appellant provides no support for the proposition that degree of illumination should be measured by the average amount of light. That's what they say. And I agree that's the issue. This is the support that you should measure the level of illumination by the average amount, because that's what they do in Times Square. DOB goes on to say, as Commissioner Sheta said, that there could be a contrast. You could have some sides of the sign that are more illuminated than other parts. What I'm pointing out is in Times Square, they do regulate that.
I understand that. I think my confusion lies on page 7 of the statement of facts. It says the lighting study established maximum illumination levels of XYZ. As
I
shown
agree
by
with you.
DOB, we will have maximum illumination levels slightly below those maximums. So I thought you were proposing signs that were slightly above the maximum of the existing, not the average.
That's a reasonable conclusion on your part. It was an error in our part. We agree, as DOB synthesized what we were saying, to say that we are dealing with and agree it should only be the average illumination level.
So then the proposal should have been much lower. The number of lumens per sign should have been much lower.
Well, no, is that we calculated the right average level illumination, and we're agreeing that the new sign has to be no higher than that. Maybe I
That
had,
statement I don't understand, because the average in the Big Shine Energy, we get in the 200s, and the proposal, we're in the 500s. So it
less
seems
than
like
that.
using the maximum.
That's the average is like 280, 282, or 220. We agree whatever it said in our statement of facts, and we'll fix it, we agree that we cannot go above the average level illumination. DOB focused on that and said they didn't think even the average was the right way to go. We're now showing that average is the right way to go. We certainly agree with you that we can't use the maximum. We have to use the average.
So then the proposal would have to change.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it's not a problem. Yes, that's what I've been saying. Sorry that I've still been confusing. We will change our statement of facts. And we are appealing from their decision that said you can't have a directly illuminated. And in appealing decision, we're saying, yeah, we think it's wrong so long as our average level of illumination is no higher in the new sign than it is in the existing signs. And we will make sure our statement of facts is changed accordingly.
But maybe what I want to clarify is that the statement of facts seems consistent with what was proposed in the submissions to DOB, which is pursuant to the maximum levels found, not the average levels found. So all this, perhaps for me, is more of a question of how the C finding and whether this project met that. It's part of that discussion. But what you're saying doesn't match up with what was actually proposed, because that is based on the existing maximums. And so the proposal would have to change. So I just want to make sure that's clear to everyone.
It was based on comparing existing maximums.
Right.
To propose.
It's not just a matter of a
Yeah.
typo in the statement of facts. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we'll make it crystal
Yeah.
clear that what we're proposing to do is have the new sign not exceed the average level of illumination in the current signs. We'll make
But that
that
would be
clear.
a different ZRD1 and a different subject for DOB.
No, DOB did not. If you look at, there's no confusion. If you look at what DOB's statement said in opposition to us, they understood that they understood that we were dealing with the average amount. That wasn't what it was turned down on. Is that if you want to look at the ZRD1, they turned it down on one thing, nonconformity. They didn't mention illumination levels at all. The Commissioner Wen's turn down said that you are creating a nonconformity. He didn't say a word about illumination levels. That's something that we're clarifying now. It certainly shouldn't be something that prohibits the board from analyzing the core issue here.
But if you want to work with the average, similar to the article that you're just putting on the screen, let's say sign B. Sign B, the average for it is 220 lumens. This is the average. The minimum is like 78. If you're gonna get a sign with 220, which is the average, its average is 220, its maximum could be above that. And then when you compare whatever the maximum is to the 78, it's significant increase, right?
I'm not understanding your question, Commissioner Shepard.
Sign B, the average for it is 220 lumens.
Yes,
According to your submission, to the lighting study.
yes.
The minimum for it, which is at the top right-hand side corner, is 78, right?
Uh-huh.
The proposed LED will produce uniform lumen more or less. And according to the clause that you're displaying now, you're saying that you have the right to put a sign that compares to the average, the new one, the direct illuminated one, which means that you could put an LED sign of up to 220 average. If you compare the 220 to the 78, this is like almost 3 times. And I see this in contradiction with finding C, which says that illumination shouldn't increase.
But I believe the appellant's saying that comports with the minimum illuminance ratio not being greater than 3 to 1.
I'm
Yes,
not
but that doesn't apply to 5283.
Well, I have to say, for me, the concern is we're using the special Times Square district signage as a way to establish how correctly the analysis was done by the appellant. I understand up to the average minimum, but I do not think we should be using that ratio of 3 to 1 because Times Square signage is very complicated, much more intense, and we need to be careful about supplementing that. And just because it's there in the zoning resolution and supplementing that for a non-Times Square district signage. So while average may be a way to go, but not for the rest of it. So my concern is I appreciate you sharing this on the with us, but there is a lack of standard that needs to be established by DOB for non-Times Square district signage. And if that is based on something similar to what Times Square has, because that's what that is a DOB determination, but that has to be defined. And if it's not defined in the zoning resolution, that could be one way of doing it. It then has to be otherwise then established by
agree
DOB,
100%,
which is
but
what section 4200 did not 42, the sign regulation chapter in manufacturing district very specifically talked about DOB standard. And so what is the DOB standard? And that is my biggest question, whether it is based on something similar to what Times Square does or something that has been practiced consistently. And I'm failing to see a consistency in this whole process.
I also think that using this to describe a support for using the average luminance when that is not what was done in the ZRD1 in the proposal. The maximum was used.
Yes.
So this is not relevant in my mind to what was before us, which is did DOB make the correct determination in their reversal of the initial ZRD1? The
Well-
average, this argument to me is just confusing the matter because that's not what was used.
Yeah, let me try to
Move
try to
forward.
clarify two things first.
DOB.
First,
Okay,
I want to
yeah.
deal with the chair's comment first, and we'll come back to yours, Commissioner Yoon. Can you go back to the 5283, Michael? The point is that in 5283 subdivision C, all it talks about is degree of illumination. I was saying that DOB's allegation that there could be an issue about contrast is misplaced because 5283 doesn't talk about contrast, doesn't talk about luminance ratio. I was comparing it to Times Square where it does talk about, basically to say, look, when the zoning resolution wanted to regulate a luminance ratio, they did so. And they do it in Times Square, but they don't do it in 5283. So my point was that DOB shouldn't read into 5283 something that's not there. That was my point. I wasn't saying that we're trying to impose Times Square. I was trying to show how the zoning resolution provided for the requirement. for
Fair
luminance
enough.
ratio.
And I think
That's it.
I think I would say three of the commissioners here agree with you that there needs to be a clear understanding of what methodology DOB is applying that is consistent across the board for the lumen industry, for the lighting industry, for signs that are outside the Times Square districts.
Okay. With respect to Commissioner Yoon's point, nobody raised the issue of max versus average. And DOB joined the issue in their papers where they understood what we were intending to say. We're happy to go back. I mean, we want to take more time, we'll go back. We'll make it crystal clear in the ZRD1. And the ZRD1 will turn us down on the basis of average because DOB in their papers to this board assumed that we're talking about average. They understood that that was a silly error and talking about max. And their papers say, if you look at their point in point 4, their first paragraph, they talk about the fact that we're talking about average and they don't think it should be average. But if you think this somehow poisons the whole procedure, we have to go back and change the ZRD1 and come back here in a couple of months. I don't think that should be necessary since both we and DOB agree that we're asking for the average. I think it's something that's ripe for the board's consideration, but it's up to you as to whether you agree.
Jay, can I have a point?
that's where, if you could just let me share screen so I could just show you what I'm looking at, and
Sure.
maybe I am misunderstanding something, but I, am looking at the lighting study.
That's the thing.
Could you, Mr. Siegel, could you?
Uh,
You stop sharing just
Mr.
briefly?
Zoltan, could you stop sharing the
I'm sorry.
screen? Commissioner Yoon wants to share her screen. You can then share your screen.
Okay, so this is the
Here's the
lighting
big
study
we.
for the the 35th Street billboard, which is also identified as billboard B, that has an average lumens of 220 and a maximum of 567. So then the proposed says it's going to have a maximum brightness of 565. This is below the maximum, not below the average. The point I'm trying to make is that what was proposed, this is not a typo, that it was described incorrectly as pursuant or, relative to the maximum of the existing. It is, or relative to the average. What was proposed was relative to the maximum of the existing signs.
I
So
don't think I-
if it were to be below the average of the existing signs, it would be below 220 lumens here.
Yeah.
So the typo, it's not a typo, it's that this project, this proposal, in its substance, is relying on the maximum of 1 point on the existing billboard.
No, if I said it was a typo, it was a mistake. I said it was an error. I can say it 20 more times, but it's an error. And we acknowledge,
I just want to make that clear for the record, because
And
I
I-
think it was
okay.
I was confused about what you were saying.
Okay,
no, I agree with you, it's an error. And it's an error that,
so, and that is something needs to be corrected and for DOB to assess. But I think the larger question still looms is what is the standard that DOB is using?
Exactly, yes.
yeah, somebody just handed me a document that I can submit to the board that seems to have superseded what the study said and talks about that we're going to be equal or less than the average. It's the final ZRD1, page 41, and I'll submit it. One of my colleagues just handed it to me, but I agree that report was wrong. It was foolish, not a typo. They made a mistake. Nobody's contending that if you have a high point on one portion of the sign, that we're not increasing the degree of illumination if we make the new sign equal to the highest point. That would just be wrong. And somebody made a mistake. And apparently it might have been, I'm looking at the final piece of paper on page 41 of the ZRD1 we appealed from, which does talk about average. So hopefully we can put this to bed. I mean, we in DOB aren't arguing in our papers that we can go up to the maximum of the read. It'd be foolish, because we are talking about the average. I just finished showing you how in Times Square they talk about the average, and we're trying to say that it should be the same treatment of average for 5283. And I apologize. Clearly somebody should have caught that error, and they haven't. And I'm sorry it's taken up so much time. And I'll highlight in the document that we submit the page of the final ZRD1 that we are appealing from that does talk about the average. And it says the heading says the proposed illumination level of the LED sign will equal or less to, and it has the averages of each signs. So despite the error in the ANC report, we will show you the corrected document in their ZRD1. So,
Thank you, Mr. Siegel.
no, and thank you for pointing it out. It's an embarrassing thing to be in documents. So, time to go to number 2. Their other argument, the non-conformity argument. They argue that by changing from an indirectly illuminated advertising sign to a directly illuminated advertising sign, we're creating a new non-conformity. And let's take a look at, well, first of all, no, let's switch. Let's take a look at the definition of what a non-conformity is. I agree that initially in the ZRD1 we're appealing from, Commissioner Wen appears to treat the 4 different types of advertising illumination. I mean, it says there are 4 different types. One is no illumination. And the other, he has direct and indirect and flashing. But he seemed to say there are 4 different types of uses. And I don't think that's supportable. As Commissioner Otley Brown said, there's only one type of use, it's an advertising sign. There's not 4 types of sub-uses. But to the extent that DOB is now arguing that by changing the illumination level, it's creating a new nonconformity, even if it's not a use, I want to look at the definition of nonconformity in 1210. So 1210 says a nonconforming use is a use that doesn't conform to one or more of the applicable use regulations of the district in which it is located. And a nonconformity is failure to perform to any one of those use regulations. And the issue here is we are treated as if we're in a C64 district. And a C64 district has no use regulation, no regulation at all that prohibits a legal non-conforming advertising sign from being directly illuminated. It is certain, so they can't point to a specific regulation that we are violating that's applicable to a C64 district. What they can say is no new advertising signs are permitted in the C64 district. That's certainly correct. But there's no provision that says if you already have a legal non-conforming advertising sign that's indirectly illuminated, that you can't change it to directly illuminated. In fact, the only illumination provisions that they have in a C64 district allow illuminated or even flashing signs in the C64 district. True, they're only applicable to new business signs, because the only new signs you could have are business signs. But if you have a legal, non-conforming, indirectly illuminated advertising sign, there's no provision that says that you can't make it direct. Instead, we think the correct control should go to 5283, which talks about illuminations, as we've seen before. And
I am a little concerned about showing this out of context. If one has to go to first section of 3200, which states some of the basic parameters. What this is showing is this regulation applies to signs other than advertising signs. So applying that rule in this case would be contrary to what the underlying zoning allows, which is it does not allow advertisement sign. So taking the section of the zoning resolution which applies to non-advertisement sign to a sign that is advertising, which is not permitted, I don't think that is permitted. That is stretching the parameters of the conformity.
Oh, sorry.
And therefore it makes it a non-conformity.
That's not what I said, because I did start out by saying that new advertising signs are not permitted in a C64 district. I said that. And I said, however, there's nothing in a C64 district that will prohibit an existing
I understand.
non-conforming.
I heard you very clearly, Mr. Siegel, what you're saying, but you're taking pieces that kind of help your argument, but I don't think that's how the zoning ought to be read. The zoning clearly here does not, it says you have to follow C64, and C64 says you're not allowed advertising sign. So you have an advertising sign which is grandfathered, which is indirectly illuminated. Now you're saying, well, C64 doesn't allow my advertising sign, but C64 does allow accessory signs to be illuminated, and hence I'm going to apply the accessory sign illumination level to an advertising sign which does not allow any illumination. That, to me, is a nonconformance.
Well, I'm going to try to show you where that's not the case. But what I was trying to say was where you have a legal, non-conforming, indirectly illuminated advertising sign, there's nothing inherent in a C64 district that prohibits direct illumination. They even allow flashing signs. And I was trying to make my point, which I realize it's not going over that well with you. I appreciate that. But my point to all the commissioners is that if you have a legal advertising sign that's indirectly illuminated, and now you want to see if there's anything in the district that says we just dislike illuminated signs, direct illuminated signs, period. There's nothing, no such thing. And consequently, I think the right thing to do is to go back to 5283 to see if you can change from a indirect to a direct. And I think 5283 covers that in the illumination provisions. When they talk about don't increase the degree of illumination, I think it would be, you're already assuming that you have a non-conforming, 5283, you have a non-conforming advertising sign when you go to 5283. You switch. When you're in 5283, the assumption is that you have a non-conforming sign. So in determining whether you can change the illumination, it would be, I think, incorrect to say, well, we're in a district that doesn't allow advertising signs, therefore you can't change the illumination. But many of the times that you have a non-conforming advertising sign, it's going to be in a district that doesn't allow it. So if you're trying to talk about whether or not you can have a switch from indirect to direct, you can look at two things. One, you can say, does the district have a total prohibition against illumination? I showed you that's not the case. You can have illumination in signs that are permitted. And the other is, are you increasing the degree of illumination, which we're showing you not. So that's why I think that you shouldn't say, well, if you're switching to a direct illumination, you're automatically creating an impermissible nonconformity. That would mean anytime you had an advertising sign in a district that didn't allow it, you couldn't change the illumination. Whereas we think you should be looking at C and not saying by definition you're creating a nonconformity.
So I think, Mr. Siegel, I appreciate your approach. I think the zoning resolution, while it may not be all codified in one section of the zoning resolution, and as a learned member of the legal practice that you are, you very well know what the intent of the zoning resolution is, especially when you are converting from a non-conforming use, or when you're taking a grandfathered use and you're trying to meet the requirements. Nowhere does the zoning allow a legally non-conforming use to increase the degree of non-conformity, right? So you cannot increase the size, you cannot change the location, you cannot increase the degree of illumination. Now, while nowhere in the text does it clearly say what is a highly intense use versus less intense, if you look at the zoning resolution, it is very clear. It does seem to have a bias towards advertisement signs that are indirectly illuminated to have a larger surface area than illuminated signs that have a smaller surface area. The purpose of it is that the intensity of a directly illuminated sign has more adverse effect on the surrounding context than an indirectly illuminated. And those are very much embedded in the zoning resolution. So one has to take what is there in the resolution, that has been in the resolution from the very beginning, to kind of follow the cookie and come to that, arrive at the conclusion. That's how I'm arriving at the conclusion that it does create increase in the illumination without reading the sign study, but also it results in non-conformity, the A finding. Vice Chair Srivastava, what were you saying?
I was saying.
Well, Chandra, I understand how it feels like it ought to prevent it.
Right, and which is
but-
what Mr. Siegel is doing, but his approach is different from mine. So we're all interpreting the regulation, but the regulation has all of we can pick and choose what we want.
I just want to go back to the four corners of the zone. I understand that it feels like there should be a prohibition because you're correct that they certainly regulate directly illuminated more strictly than indirectly illuminated. So it feels like there should be a prohibition, but two things. One, can we go back to the definition of non-conforming on the book? The non-conforming says you need to have a regulation that's applicable to the zoning district in which it's located. There is no regulation applicable to a C64 district that talks about the ability to change a legal, non-conforming advertising sign from
Is it because
indirect to
that's
direct.
not permitted? Is it the only reason that you don't have that language is because it's not permitted as of right? You have a grandfathered use that isn't permitted in the district, and now you're trying to apply that there are no rules for that use that we have to abide by. So let me pick the Times Square district to gauge my I think at this point we're just repeating the same things over and over again. I'm not speaking for the whole board, but I think I would like to hear from DOB at this point.
Right. I do want to, and I just want to point out the nonconformity definition that that we're seeing on the screen. It is,
I would just like to respond to what I just heard from the vice chair for a second, before you go on. Is what I was saying was there are regulations that apply. If there's no regulation that applies, you look to 5283. And 5283 talks in terms of not changing the degree of illumination. I think it would be
5283
contrary to the intent of the zoning resolution.
Yeah.
I mean,
That would be the C portion, but there's also the A portion of 5283 that I think is the larger hurdle.
yeah, I think if what you say is whenever you have an advertising sign in a district in which it's not allowed, then any changes to it could be increasing the degree of nonconformity by definition, because you're starting out in a district that doesn't allow it at all. I don't think that is the intent. I think you go to 5283. I don't
That's
think.
not, sorry, I'm interrupting you. But if you were to make it a smaller sign,
Yes.
then it'd be fine. But it's
Yeah.
about increasing the degree of nonconformity. And to say that something that is more strictly regulated by the zoning resolution and applying that is not an increase in the degree of nonconformity, then what is?
You need to have a particular provision applicable to the district. See, what I think you're doing, I think
Mr. Siegel, please let Vice Chair speak.
And that would be left up to the board's interpretation. I did give you the opportunity to say whether or not that's an ambiguous statement, and we should look elsewhere, but I believe that it's pretty straightforward. This is an increase. I'd be happy to hear read any arguments that you would make in subsequent papers to dissuade me of that idea.
Last question from the board from Commissioner Sheta, and then I want to move on to DOB.
It's not a question. I get what Mr. Siegel is getting at, and I believe as an engineer, I would accept in some cases that moving from indirectly illuminated to directly illuminated may, and you hear it right, decrease the degree of nonconformity. It may happen. But in this case, the sign should be smaller, the illumination should be much less. If you're replacing this sign that 25 by 22 by another sign that's 4 feet by 4 feet, and it's much less illumination, I would accept that. Please let me finish. But since you're replacing that sign with the same size, with a directly illuminated one, with more or less the same degree of illumination, I believe I understand now why the DOB went before searching for that legislative intent, I would say, and looked at another zoning district and imported regulations from there to explain to you in the ZRD response that what you are proposing is more non-conforming. That's what's currently existing.
Thank you.
I understand, but I disagree with it.
Okay. Any further more information that Mr. Siegel you want to say, because then I want to move.
There really is. And it's one more concept I didn't get to because there were so many other interesting questions that the board gave me. It's that it seems, even though I point out that they're not violating a specific provision of the zoning resolution applicable to the district, I'm hearing it just seems wrong because they don't have advertising signs at all in the district. And it seems wrong then to say just because there's not a specific provision in the district that somehow we're allowed to do it. It just seems like the wrong thing. And that was it's one of DOB's main points. We observe the absurd result, they say. If in a district that allows advertising signs like an M district, that you can't have directly illuminated, but in a district that doesn't allow it, like a C64 doesn't allow any advertising signs, somehow we can get directly illuminated. And I think that this is persuading the board that it just seems wrong, even if you can't point to a specific provision. And I want to say that I have had several instances with the board, several cases I've personally been involved with, in which, in one
That may be
case,
a variance argument. I'm not sure that's an appeals argument. Commissioner Otley Brown, you had a question?
So if you were to revise your papers to correct the mistake that you made when you calculated the average.
I'm sorry, Commissioner, could you speak into a mic?
If you were to correct your papers so that it reflected the average of the original sign's illumination, is it your argument that DOB had articulated a standard that you should provide a lighting report that shows that the average does not change, right? And so therefore, it's not going to increase the degree of nonconformance? Is your argument that then, having satisfied the standard that DOB originally articulated, DOB is changing the playing field because it is not complying with what they think the result should be, which is that this really shouldn't be allowed? And so that they're going to create a new standard that you can't possibly meet so that they get the result they like, which is that you can't do this here. Is that your argument? Because that's what I was getting from your argument overall.
no, I think my argument is once we get past the lighting, their argument is that it seems absurd, but it's the language that they used, that because you can't have in a manufacturing district that allows advertising signs, that you can't have a directly illuminated advertising sign. But in a district that doesn't allow advertising signs, in C64, that we can get to a directly illuminated advertising sign. They said that's absurd. And my argument is there is no specific provision in the zoning resolution that having a directly illuminated advertising sign would violate. So they can't say that you're increasing the degree of nonconformity. I understand the vice chair's comment. The only reason there isn't such a provision is you're not allowed to have advertising signs at all in the C64 district. And to that I say, but you can make it that one is you have a nonconforming use, and those provisions should be regulated straight by 5283. And the other is if there's something that occurs that you think is wrong or irrational because there is no specific provision that says it's an easy way to do it. Let me show you how they could fix 5283.
I'm sorry, before we get into that, I'm having a little confusion because I'm looking at zoning resolution section 42-633, which is about illuminated or flashing sign, which was last amended on 6/6/2024. And it says that in M1, M2, M3 district, in all districts as indicated, illuminated or flashing advertising signs are not permitted. Illuminated or flashing signs other than advertising signs and accessory or advertising signs with indirect illumination are permitted. So am I misunderstanding?
DOB's argument is that you are allowed to have advertising signs that are indirectly illuminated in these manufacturing districts. Why would we then, in a district that doesn't allow any advertising signs at all, why would we then suddenly say this is okay to be directly illuminated when they're not even allowed to be directly illuminated where they are permitted?
Right, so
That's DOB's argument, and he's contesting that.
well, I think DOB that way is being consistent. It is saying, in a C64 district, you're not allowed an advertising sign. But if I were to remove the garment center special district or the sub-district application that limits it to C64 and where to use the applicable M1 zoning district without the special district requirements, even then, and illuminated advertising sign is not permitted. So where am I, what am I missing?
If you had the
You're not missing anything. What I think you're saying is that
Excuse me, please don't
Right,
speak when the chair.
But
speaks.
what I'm saying, if
Transcript
let's
gets
say,
mixed up.
if,
You need a microphone.
but if it was grandfather, I mean, it is grandfathered, and by grandfather standard, you even without the government center special district or any of the subsequent changes in the zoning resolution to the special district, we limited to C64. What, by that change of regulation that happened in 2000,
Yeah.
one couldn't have an illuminated advertising sign.
You're only grandfathered by your parameters. It doesn't mean that you then get to ask for things that aren't permitted, change your sign to such a degree to then ask for things that aren't permitted in that district over and above what your grandfathered right is.
And I think the absurdity is that this would be in direct conflict with the intent of the zoning resolution to highly regulate advertising signs and how they are illuminated.
So
Thank-
let me just try to close my point, because there's a very live board that I'm before, and it's tough for me to make my point because you all have such interesting points to make. My point is, yes, you might conclude that it would be absurd. And my point is, at least in my experience, this board reads the zoning resolution as it's written. And even if something would create an absurd conclusion, the board doesn't go to what was intended, they go to what's written. And in my experience, which I was going to show you, is that what they leave it to city planning to amend the zoning resolution to prevent absurdities from happening.
I don't see the absurdity here. I think DOB in its strange way has been very consistent. I don't agree. I don't agree with the way they've gone about it, but the text is pretty clear.
The text is pretty clear that to have a nonconformity, you have to be in violation of a provision that's applicable to your zoning district.
I think.
And there is no provision that's applicable.
Mr. Siegel, if you want to add anything new, please do, because we do have to go to DOB on this matter. So if you want to add anything new that we have not heard, please do illuminate us. No pun
I
intended.
think he has a better argument.
I think I've added enough.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. And please do submit all the information that you've shared today, your presentation and the discussion in your submission, so that we have it on record also.
Can I correct the record for something?
Please, we need to
Yeah,
go to DOB.
30 seconds.
Please, we need to go to DOB.
Okay.
Please,
fine.
we need to go to
We,
DOB.
we got something on the record that's not accurate, FYI.
Okay. I think that's been amplified and Mr. Siegel has acknowledged that. So, DOB, please go ahead.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
I'm
Cannot
sorry.
hear you.
Am I not mute? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. The change from indirectly to directly illuminated advertising sign creates a new nonconformity or an increase in the degree of nonconformity contrary to ZR 5283A. I'm going to stick to primarily to the A argument right now, as that seems to be the one that's been receptive. I did want to mention, though, that when it came to the average versus maximum confusion, we only addressed average in our filing because the original filing that the appellant filed only mentioned the average, but they submitted a revised statement the same day that we put in our filing that then relied on the max. And so we were going to dispute the max, but like I said, I'm going to stick with the more compelling argument here, which is basically the creation of a new nonconformity or increase in the degree of a nonconformity. The appellant argued that there's not a new use, and therefore that's not a new nonconformity. I mean, now they're acknowledging that any violation of a regulation that applies to use would also be creating a new nonconformity. And they really didn't address the conclusion, our point that it would be the increase in the degree of nonconformity. So even if the new signs are not a different use, because of the change from indirect to direct illumination, that could be seen as an increase in the degree of nonconformity. Sorry, one second. This limitation is not changed in 5283 A is not limited to changes in use, and it's not limited to new uses. It's also limiting the degree of a nonconformity, and that has to be different than the degree of illumination, because obviously C specifies degree of change in the degree of illumination. So the change in degree of nonconformity must apply to something different. And we also want to reiterate that the reason why that there's not a regulation that here is being via, a regulation applicable to that use that's being violated is only because in all advertising signs are prohibited there. And therefore, obviously, there's not going to be a specific regulation regulating advertising signs as there would have been prior to 2001 or whenever they.
So I just want to, so if this is, so there is no regulation for an accessory sign. So an accessory sign can have any level of illumination?
No.
No,
We're not-
there's regulation.
No, there are
but
regulations on
what is
accessory
the
signs, but both
definition?
levels of illumination are allowed.
No, no.
Are you asking for like a maximum illumination level?
Yeah, yeah. What is the maximum illumination level? How are you, an accessory illumination sign, by M1, like, no, I'm just, when you're saying illumination, like, is there a standard? Like, what is the amount of illumination you permit for an permitted accessory sign?
In this district.
Actually in any district for that matter, where,
Let's just keep it to this district for now.
well, it should be the same, really. But-
In the absence of those restrictions, I think we have to determine whether this is an increase in the degree of nonconformance.
Right.
Regardless.
Yeah.
Because there does not appear to be a cap unless
Right.
DOB has a different response.
And going
No,
to
uh,
section 42, can you show me that section 40?
There was a difference.
Okay, no, I just want to look at the sign. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Paul.
all right. So, I mean, you guys mentioned the absurdity argument, which is based on longstanding case law. This is not just whatever compelling. But yeah, the idea that in a less restrictive district like an M district that you could not make this change, but you can make it in a C64 district would be, an absurd result. And additionally, like in C8 and manufacturing districts, they allow indirectly illuminated, but not directly illuminated. This is going more to the point that this is more that indirectly illuminated signs are subject to fewer regulations than illuminated signs. The only reason why that's not the case in this district is because all advertising signs are prohibited.
Mr. Paul, I just.
Yep.
This is a section I was looking for, which is zoning resolution section 32-64, which is surface area and illumination provision. And in that it says, third paragraph says, no illuminated sign shall have a degree or method of illumination which exceeds standards established by the Department of Buildings by rule pursuant to City Administrative Procedure Act. I did not see any documents that were submitted that seem to indicate that there is any clear guidance provided for illumination. And if it is lacking, that must be provided by DOB.
Okay, I will have to get back to you to respond to that and some of the other questions because it's
Okay.
not.
And Commissioner Otley Brown.
Because you made the statement that in this case, the signs change from, the change from indirect illumination to direct illumination is an increase in the degree of nonconformity. But is that just assumed by you that it would be an increase in the degree of nonconformity? Or is there a way in which DOB measures that?
No, we would treat that as an increase in the degree of nonconformity.
But why? That's my question.
Because of I guess the visual effects of a directly illuminated sign are very different than an indirectly illuminated sign. I mean,
But how do you prove that? How do you measure that? That's my question.
I guess we're reticent to compare illumination levels of indirectly and directly illuminated signs. It's a very difficult thing to do.
I think,
But
Mr.
I'm
What
sorry.
you just stated about illumination indirect, and they're different, that clearly says that that goes to the A finding of
Yeah.
Beatty. But I don't think it has been very well briefed.
The appellants raised whether this is an illumination issue or a non-conforming use issue under A versus C,
Yeah.
and DOB's.
DOB was going more on the use part of it when it is actually illumination.
It can't be a non-conforming use because of the increase in the degree of illumination,
yeah.
and those are separate findings.
Yeah,
Were they denied based on illumination increase?
Right.
The third one denied based on non-conformity increase. The DOB looked at the subject zoning district and they couldn't find regulations that regulate the change from the indirect to direct. Let me please finish. Then they went to C8, C67, C65, and they looked at how these signs are regulated, and they saw that the direct illuminated one is more stringent than the indirect one. And that's how they imported this like
I think,
hierarchy into the subject zoning district. And they said that alteration will cause an
I
increase
think-
in non-conformity.
yeah.
Did I get it right?
I'm not sure I quite
Mr.
follow.
Bowles, did I get it right?
Too many other pieces.
yeah, I mean, I think that, sorry if I mentioned the degree of illumination. I think I meant to say the degree of nonconformity. I mean, we would consider a change where it's not specifically allowed from indirectly illuminated to directly illuminated to be a new nonconformity. And, short of that, at least an increase in the degree of nonconformity, regardless of the illumination level. There are a lot of.
For that.
What?
What was the basis for that? What was the basis for that conclusion? That change from indirect to direct will cause additional nonconformity?
I guess just the different impact that it has on a viewer.
In some way in the zoning resolution?
This is not, obviously, this is just
It isn't.
No.
Okay.
Isn't it-
policies. This is not in the zoning resolution.
But isn't somebody's perception of the brightness or the increased illumination, isn't that perception a partial one, depending on the receiver who's actually looking at it? How do you measure it and quantify it to create a standard?
Well, I think zoning resolution tasked DOB with endeavoring a CAPA rulemaking to codify illumination standards.
I don't see it in the paperwork.
So query, has that been done by DOB?
No, it has not.
The only thing I do see is that the first commissioner to review the paperwork was trying to articulate a standard. Let's look at the lighting report and what are the conclusions of the lighting report? And that commissioner said the conclusions of the lighting report are that this change is not an increase in the degree of non-conformance, so it's okay. So, but now I'm seeing that DOB reversed on that and is now talking about something different. And so that's what I want to know. What's going on here? You did seem to articulate a standard. The standard was technically met or would be met when they correct their papers the way they wanted to, but yet now that's no longer the standard. And is it because it's no longer the standard because it doesn't go along with your assumption that going from indirect illumination to direct illumination is an increase in the degree of nonconformity?
I guess I'm not sure what the question is. You're asking if the change from let's just say the method of illumination, for a less intense to a more intense type of illumination. Yeah, we consider that a new nonconformity. And like I said, in the alternative, an increase in the degree of nonconformity.
To be based on something that is kind of impartial.
It can't be subjective, and the public has an applicant as something that they can base their applications on. It can't be like, oh, I'll know when I see it. There needs to be a standard.
The thing
And
that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And I think that I would, at this point, I think it'd probably be best to go speak to your team at DOB and see what the standards are, or if they can articulate, if there has been TPPN that's been forwarded around, because
Or is
this,
there a standard practice that you're following?
this,
I have a question though. If this were a flashing sign, would you consider that an increase in the degree of nonconformance from indirect to flashing?
I'm not trying to, I don't think what either Commissioner Otley Brown or myself are trying to do is to make a winning argument. We're trying to find out what the standards are and see if they are fitting in with the standards. Do I have a certain, my own personal belief? Do I believe that a sign that
But I'm asking
changes
about-
illumination is different than a static sign? Yeah, I believe they are different. They have a different effect
Yeah.
on the people at large. There haven't been any changes to the sign yet, so at this point, I just want to see what their standards are to see how
My
they can
question
move.
is more based on what is in the zoning resolution, based on what's in the zoning resolution. As you read it, if this were a flashing sign, separate of any other quantitative analysis, would you consider this an increase in the degree of nonconformance, and why?
We would consider that a new nonconformity. Flashing signs are in this zoning district, they're specifically prohibited. So I don't think we would have to rely on a degree there. And generally, as we've discussed, the zoning resolution does regulate signs based on the 4 different kinds of illumination or methods of illumination. And we believe that a change from a less intense to a more intense, so from from non-illuminated to indirectly illuminated, or indirectly illuminated to directly illuminated, is a change in is a new nonconformance or a change in the degree of nonconformance. But like you said, a flashing sign would be, I guess, the same principle, except it is specifically prohibited here. So
And I
So
appreciate
you
that, but
to, Mr. Paul, you then need to provide supporting evidence and documents for that.
the standards and
The
procedures
Yeah.
that
you talk about the standards for what constitutes
Sorry?
degree of nonconformance.
I think we distilled the issue to the board here, which is DOB has an understanding that a change from indirectly illuminated to directly illuminated is inherently bad.
It's a
And-
more intense use.
It's inherently a more intense use, and therefore an increase in the degree of nonconformance or a new nonconformance. The board is not convinced and would like support for that.
And just not to ask for something that we have, the reasoning, the explanation of such claim is there in their letter on page 4, starting the first paragraph, ending on the 4th one. They explained how they got to the conclusion that changing from indirect illumination to direct illumination, LED, is an increase in the degree of nonconformity. It is there, we have it. Just read it.
Okay, you talk about
So
the.
we're gonna ask for something that we already have.
But part of what I think is the concern here is that this is a narrative description of the impact, the perceived impact to the human. And what I think some members of the board are looking for is what is an actual regulatory or how can we hang our hat on that as a more intense use? Not just based on something we might personally understand, but that might be subjective, but what is the actual regulatory text or case law precedent that says this is a more intense use and therefore it is a higher degree of nonconformity, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, articulate a standard.
Okay, so you want beyond the fact that
Not readily apparent to everybody who looks at it. And I think that DOB has the responsibility to the public to articulate a standard that is clear and transparent so that everybody reading it can make their plans accordingly and their investments accordingly.
And along with that standard, some
Yeah, that
evidence, you guys have been adhering to that standard for a period of time.
Okay. And I guess the argument that we made that there are 4 different types of illumination and that each one is more strictly whatever, restricted in zoning districts where it's applicable. That's insufficient to establish that that's a more intense.
I don't think that's how the document stated it. I made that in my discussion, that's how I distilled it. It was not in your documentations. So
Did you read page 4
I did,
of the commissioner letter?
right.
Yeah,
I
you
did,
did.
but there are
It's
more
not
to
very
it.
clear.
It's not clear and there's more to it. And
I guess
think-
that's what the ZRD, the most recent ZRD, that's what was described in there.
So I think there's a lot of unanswered questions from the commissioners that DOB needs to answer to support its argument for A and B. And honestly,
A and C.
sorry, A and C, I'm sorry, A and C. And what is missing from this is a very clear directive from DOB regarding the standards that DOB consistently applies, and what are those, and where is it based, what is it based out of, and where is it codified?
And we still didn't get an answer for how the sign is gonna work. Is it gonna be just one image for 15 seconds or different images?
I think it's irrelevant. However, for the record, I do want DOB to provide their documentation in whatever standard that DOB applies consistently to distinguish a non-flashing sign from a flashing sign. And what is that standard that is used and that is consistent across the industry? Please provide that for the record so that we have, since it has been raised and it's on the record, I want that to be provided so that we can clear that out. And whether it's a case law, whether it is a TPPN, whether it's an internal memo or it's a practice that has been consistently applied, provide that so that we can at least put that to rest. Okay, is there any other questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Siegel, do you want to say anything? If not, you can always put it in writing. This is going to be continued. We are not going to close on this. There's a lot of unanswered questions at both ends. Okay? All right, let's go to the public.
Thank you, Ms. Pringa. The case that we're currently discussing is 2026-10A, 467th Avenue, Manhattan. Should you wish to comment on this application, please dial 669-254-5252 at the prompt to enter the webinar ID number 161-067-3359 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you will press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand, excuse me, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you're recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to comment on this application.
Okay, so as we are waiting to hear from the public, all I'm going to say is that there are a lot of questions that the board raised. Please listen through the recording and respond to each one of these questions and clarify all the various standards, specifically for DOB, the various standards that DOB has applied in making its determination. This will be continued, and I do not think you need a lot of time to brief this. So I would recommend that we schedule the next hearing in September.
Can we still get an answer for whether the proposed signs will be capable of playing videos or not?
It won't be, because if it is a flashing sign, if it is not a flashing sign, then it will not.
It's an LED sign.
Doesn't matter. A flashing sign is equal to a video. And if this is not a flashing sign, it's not.
I'm not asking whether it's gonna play video or not. I'm asking if it's gonna be capable
Capable of.
Yeah.
But why is that important? Why is that relevant? It would be in violation. That's not part of the determination, yeah.
If
And
you
we're
have
not-
a building
Yeah.
that that's 20 stories and it's capable of being 50 stories, but it's only 20 stories and there's a limit
That's
on
fine.
height
Wait,
for
that's
20
fine.
stories, why do we care if it's capable of being 50 stories? If it's complying with the regulation that it should only be 20 stories. We know it could handle another 30 stories, but it's not. Because there's a limit.
It's
Why
not
do we
before
care?
us.
It's the capability.
I think the more
I was-
important
I
part,
was
it is
with
not
the
before us.
automobile version. Speed limit's 50.
That's my.
Okay, it's also like the automobile version. I mean, however you do it, as long as it complies.
Yeah,
Um,
never broke 50.
yeah, but the
Okay.
regulation limits you to non-flashing signs. That's it.
All righty.
Okay, I think our project manager will get back to you and coordinate a time of deliveries. First, I think it needs to be submitted by, either you can do jointly, or I would prefer it to be first by the appellant, then by DOB, and then a rebut.
Yeah.
If that's okay with you? September doesn't allow much time there.
I don't hear the schedule.
We submit, then DOB, then us.
That's fine with us.
How long would you need to put in papers?
When is the hearing going to be?
So the September 14th hearing requires a submission by September 1st. So if that procedure is not possible, if you want to submit jointly, both
No, no,
of
no,
them-
I like what you said. So September 1st is the final submission.
Final submission from.
That'll be
us.
our submission. And if we submit in 2 weeks, that gives DOB time to submit and then gives us time
I
to.
think
do
this
the
is where
final
the
sub-
coordination would be needed. So maybe then September becomes little too early. The
So if you
next
do
would
2 weeks,
say hearing is
It would
October
be this
5th and
week,
6th.
right, wouldn't it?
So it would be
This-
either September
14th.
15th, 14th,
And then
15th, or
DOB would
October
be
5th,
here.
6th.
And if they want to do a surply,
Because of the survey apply is where the issue.
if they want to,
No, I think
apply.
Mr. Siegel wants to.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mr. Siegel wants to.
because I'm saying 2 here, 2 here, applicant, appellants, DOB, and then.
So
Supply-
it would be appellant to submit the week of August 10th. And then DOB to submit the week of August 30th. And then, yeah,
So reply-
appellant to so reply a week of September 7th with a hearing on 14th, 15th.
Okay,
And then DOB can, whatever, the hearing. Yeah,
yeah. Does that work? So please coordinate with the project manager and see if that works.
And thank you for such an intellectually stimulating discussion.
Miss Miller is available. Miss Miller's raising her
Oh.
hand, sorry.
Ms. Miller?
DOB.
Yeah. Hi, Felicia Miller for DOB. Do you hear me?
Yes.
The general counsel's office has a transition happening. We expect to have a new deputy general counsel beginning hopefully by September, but we request that I am retiring at the end of this month, and we request that we have a little more time to respond. Some say sometime in September, mid-September would, at a minimum.
Would mean October 5th, 6th hearing.
September, if it's after September 15th, but I request not before that.
So then maybe the 19th, 20th?
Yeah, as long as it's not over objection of the appellant, we have October 19th, 20th.
Well, you don't need us to submit on August 10th if we're not having a
No,
hearing
no,
until
we
October.
we will work the dates with you as long as as long as October 19th, 20th. is
I do want to add, I'm very sorry to hear about Felicia Miller retiring. I think it'll be a great loss for the building department.
Likewise.
Thank you, Judge.
Congratulations, Ms. Miller.
Okay,
Mr.
so
Siegel, are you okay with October 19th, 20th?
Can I just say this?
let's figure it out.
Let's do this outside. the
Outside,
hearing.
yeah.
We just gave you some pause and we hear what Ms. Miller is saying, and we will have to scale it out of September. So it would have to be latter dates in October. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
So what is the schedule, please? I don't make sure.
We'll reach out. Jella will, Ms. Pringle will reach out to you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but we're shooting for the 15, whatever, but Jella will reach out to you. Okay, Mr. Siegel? Okay.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank
Pleasure
you,
to
very
see
good
you.
to see you.
Pleasure to see you, Mr. Siegel.
Thank
Mrs.
you.
Wilson, Mr. Pohl.
And
Okay.
probably this is the last time we're going to hear Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Congratulations again.
Congratulations.
Special
Thank
order.
you.
Move on.
Yes.
Okay. Special order calendar, continued hearing item, 84259 BZ, 800 St. Nicholas Avenue, Manhattan. Mr. Kanzada.
Yep, he's there.
Hey, good afternoon. Can you guys hear us?
Yes, yeah.
Ready?
Yes.
Raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board, and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes. Yes.
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session.
I'm Nasir Khanzala, I'm the applicant. May Abdrahim, I'm the assistant of the applicant. We review all your guys' comment. We found it's pretty fair and we appreciate giving us a comment. Starting with the curve cut, all the curve cut dimension was given from the survey, but we will go on the field to double check the dimension again, once again, and then if there's any change for the future, we're gonna place on the plan. The second comment was also regarding the curve cut. We will revise our plan and make sure that we're gonna place the dimension. Sorry,
Can you start from the
beginning?
Yeah,
please.
unfortunately.
Yeah, no problem.
Stay close
No
to the
problem.
mic.
Okay, sorry, let me get the laptop closer to us.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So as per the first comment regarding the dimension being changed, it was because it was the dimension was given by the survey company, but we would like to go to the field again, double check the curve cut dimension, make sure that it's fair and it matches as per the survey. Second comment, it's regarding the, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. For the curb cuts, what is the issue? Because the survey would have like
The dimensions are off in the documents.
between
Existing
the
dimensions.
existing and
Yeah.
the proposed.
The existing dimensions are off that are not going to change.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
And the second comment was regarding the dimension. There was a missing dimension from lot to curve cut. So we're gonna revise the plan and make sure that we have the dimension as our revised plan.
Yeah, we just want to see where the proposed curb cut is going to be located
Correct.
in relation to that corner of 150th and St. Nick Place.
That'll be sent for our next submission.
Yeah.
And the second comment is regarding the bollard that's by this that we're gonna install by the CEA store for the parking space. We're only gonna install 2 bollard, so it won't encroach with the curve cut, the existing curve cut, if it makes sense.
That's by the air and the vacuum.
Yeah. Third, the comment is regarding the property line. You guys mentioned in the past that you guys would like us to paint around on the property line. However, the owner doesn't mind. However, in our past experience with our past project, one of our clients did get a violation from the DOB
For?
because for painting the property line. So I was hoping if there's any other
Kind of
suggestion you guys recommend
I'm just curious, what kind of violation DOB would issue for painting?
for painting the property line, like because eventually the paint starts changing or like being removed, right? And it doesn't look good for the public. Second, they don't like the floor being painted for some reason.
If you paint the curb cut, they still give you violation. If you paint around the property line, they still give you violation because this is not written in the books and they say you are doing extra things which are not required by DOT. Property line is property line, is part of the survey, part of the building, but you don't have to put lines there that this is my property, this is the city property. No, whatever is there. whatever is
It's not
there.
going to be on city property, it's going to be on your portion of the property.
Yeah,
Is
but
that
then things come up that what color we should provide and then how wide it will be, and then we have to maintain it rest of the time, rest of the life. So it becomes a trouble for the owner. If really bored, if we get something out of it, we love to do it, but what is the advantage?
Mr. Kanzada, there can be two kinds of trouble. One is you don't have the line and that way you don't have to have the trouble of maintaining it. But then there's the other kind, without the line, there are, the cars will be parked on the sidewalk and that will be another kind of trouble. So which trouble is more trouble?
Oh, God.
So that's the reason we are putting bollard on the pump and vacuum side, 2 bollards, so it will be dedicated that nobody will park on the sidewalk and they will park on the other side.
That's the vacuum side, but what about the rest of it? The rest of it you cannot bollard it. Mr. Kanzada, you're breaking up, can't hear you.
Let me just summarize the whole thing. One is-
Again, Mr. Kanzada, Mr. Kanzada,
no.
please stop. You're breaking up.
Start from the fresh. So the existing building was a
Mr. Kanzada, unfortunately, Mr. Kanzada, we're having some technical
Maybe
issue.
try turning the video off so that the stream comes in clearer.
Okay. So existing, we had a C-store and we had a repair shop.
So,
And then,
oh, there we go. That's
can you hear us better now?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so the people used to park the cars on the left side of the property where we have the 3 spots, and then the cars will be repaired time to time. So now the situation is changing. We have a C-store, and then there will be no physical parking for the clients. Just so somebody will buy coffee or something, 1 and 2 spots are more than enough as per floor area. But in this case, employee parking required. They used to park on the sidewalk, so that's why we're eliminating those parking, and we are giving employee 3 parking on top of the tanks, and they will park there. So these will be dedicated employee parking, and the customer will be only parking 2 spots. Mostly customer park on the gas station island, and they buy coffee, whatever they want. So this is how the new layout is done. That's why we have these 3 spots. These are dedicated to the employee parking only.
So those 3 parking spaces are going to be employee parking?
Correct.
Just employee.
Yes.
So you need to put a sign there saying employee parking. At
Sure,
least that
sure.
striped or somehow they're indicated it's purely only for employee parking.
Sure, that will be done. And there will be 2 more signs on the left and right of the building that no parking on the sidewalk to make sure nobody park, because we used to park. The same client used to park on the upper side of the property. They had a 2 spot there because sidewalk was like 20 feet wide. So we will have a sign on both sides of the building, up and down, saying that no parking on the sidewalk.
Okay.
The only thing is that the air and vacuum side, we are only putting 2 bollard. We cannot put whole 20 feet of bollard because there's a curb cut in front of it, and somebody can go straight
That's
to
fine.
the pump. So we will be putting 2 bollard to just differentiate that there is a separation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I have.
All right.
If there's any question from the board, I love to answer.
Where did we land on the property line painting?
Property line painting, it seems, well, the issue of the property line painting, it's really not a DOB violation. If you're painting it outside the property line, yes, it's a DOB violation. But if you're doing it within the property line, it's a maintenance issue. It's not a DOB violation. So applicant has to decide how they want to proceed. And the applicant, it seems, saying that since it's not going to be an auto repair space, the amount of vehicles that will be parked on the sidewalk will be much less.
Yes, everything is all restricted now because of All the signs are there, no parking on the sidewalk, implied parking is there, and it's only C-store. I think it will be managed better than before.
Mr. Kanzada, since you cannot put up a sign, post in front of the employee parking, you will have to stripe it and put a note on the floor of your property saying employee parking. How difficult is it to maintain that?
That can be done, no problem. We will do that. We will market
So
3
you're
spots and
contradicting
we'll.
yourself, Mr. Kanzada. You just contradicted. You said you can do that, and that is not going to be a problem for your client to maintain, but it would be a problem for the client to maintain a property line being drawn within its property line and maintaining it.
Always parking spots are painted and they are drawn, but property lines are never drawn. So that's the thing I was saying.
Parking line is like a minor space, very minor space, but like the painting around the whole entire property line constantly every month due to like the weather, the snow, the rain.
It should be the same paint that you use for your parking spots.
Yeah, that's adorable. Huh?
But also, I'm just going to make one note of this because in the document, last time we met, you guys said, yes, we will do it. And then in the submission, you said, we'll do it after construction. And now you're saying, we can't do it because of DOB. And then you're like, well, actually, we just don't want to do it. So it'd be much easier if you were more straightforward about it. Because last time we left this hearing, you said you were just going to do it and we would have photos.
Yeah. Commissioner Yoon, so what happened is that I was not here for the last hearing, but my associate was. So they discussed with the owner, and then owner came back with this thing that, oh, I never see the property line painted, this. And then, like I said, our past experience was that we painted some places the curb cuts, they gave us a violation. And then somebody said, this, the 5 feet lines of the curb cut, we painted those, we got a violation from DOT. Similarly, one time we had a property line painted and the inspector was in bad mood. He said, why you painted? This is not required. Why are you doing it? And so many things came up. So
You'll show them the C of O. It'll say that we required that you needed to paint the property line.
it's no big deal. I mean, just a paint. The board really wants property line painted, we'll paint it. And you have to tell us, should we do, the yellow color, white color, or maybe space 5 feet apart. If something helps, we would love to do it. No problem.
I think this is something we can discuss with DOB and find out the issue around painting on the property line. But for the time being, do stripe those 3 parking spaces and clearly indicate on the stripe employee parking only.
Yeah, we'll do all 5. We will paint it as a parking, and we will say 3 employee parking on the left side.
Okay.
Agreed.
And you need to do that now.
Sure. We'll mention in the drawing also.
Yeah, and make that change now physically and also make that change on the plans.
Sure, we can do that. No problem. That's what we have.
Okay. Let's go to the public.
Ready? The case that we're currently discussing is 84259 BC, 800 St. Nicholas Avenue, Manhattan. Should you wish to comment on this application, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the webinar ID number 161-067-3359 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you will press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hands at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to comment on this application.
Chair, I just wanted to make a recommendation about the curb cuts. It seems like the problem is that the last approved plans show 30-foot curb cuts around. The survey dated December of 2025, so it's recent, shows the actual dimensions are 27, 27, and then 32, 32.
Yeah.
So it seems like the discrepancy is just that what was approved before and what was built are off by a few feet.
Okay.
Right.
So survey should be followed.
Survey should be followed. I don't think we need you to go out and physically measure it because the survey should be that with a stamp. So, but on your proposed plans, it says existing curb to relocate. You should just say it's, or I guess Yeah, just to
Proposed.
mention how much it's changed so that it's very clear to us. It wasn't clear because it's called an existing curb cut, I think. I don't think it was clear to everyone that that was actually completely moved.
Understood. Commissioner Yoon, so we'll do that exactly. I agree with you 100%. It's actually 35 feet from the corner from the property line, and we are making 30 feet curb cut. It's 35 feet away from the corner. So we will mention that on drawing. And like I said before, we will measure the site. Why? Because one of the project we just got approved, 150 Willis Avenue, and we had a curb cut. We copied from the survey, put in the drawing 30 feet, whatever. And inspector went to the site, he measured, and they were 32 feet wide, and they gave us a violation. So now we are fighting the violation. So because inspector has an access to these drawings, and they look at the drawings at 27 feet, they go to the field. If it's 28 feet, we get the violation. So best thing is to go to the site and measure exact number, put in the drawing, let the inspector look at it, no problem. Why? Because these are exactly measured. Survey is like in the range, doesn't have to be 100%. So we make sure at the site from now on every site, so our client don't get a violation.
Okay. All right.
So no one is called in to raise their hand?
No. How much time you would to correct your documents and make?
Approximately 1 week to 2 weeks. But like the earliest will be 1 week.
Okay.
But we should also get photos of the
Yes.
improvement. Yeah.
By this week, yes, that by this week we're gonna get the photos. Just please let us know regarding the painting the property line. If you guys want us to paint it or not, at the end of the day, we're gonna go follow you guys' words.
I will say, I'm open. I'm okay.
We don't typically require it. It's a weird site, and the reason we did it is because people don't know where the boundary is, but we don't typically require it.
Okay.
The submission date for August 10th, 11th hearing is July 28th.
Which is mañana, tomorrow.
So,
That's 20 tomorrow.
which is tomorrow. Now, what do you need to submit? You need to submit a revised plan and photos of the improvements that's been made.
And those
So we had to go to the next schedule.
Again, you're breaking up, Mr. Casada.
The painting part will take time. Would take probably like a week for them to get like the paint and to paint on the site and for us to go on the field to take photo and to measure the curb cut. So we'll probably need more time than tomorrow,
I
if
would
that's possible.
suggest to be on the safe side. I'm going to make a recommendation that we close it. Are you okay with that? Closing it, and we keep the record open for you to revise the plans and provide correct photos, because there is rain that is anticipated this week, and there's going to be all kinds of that may set you back, and then we schedule it for September hearing. This way, you
That's
have all
perfect.
to correct your site condition and revise the plan. So September 14th, 15th, with the September 1st submission.
So September 14th, am I correct?
Yeah.
Your submission is
Thank you.
September 1st.
September 1st.
Motion to close, Chair Shonda?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta?
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon?
Aye.
Oops. Okay.
Thank you, board.
Thank you. Have a great day.
New cases on the SOC calendar, 46750, item number 13, 46758 BZ, Volume 4, 17211, Northern Boulevard, Queens.
That would be
Mr.
Todd Dale.
Dale.
Good afternoon.
With you, Mr. Dale? No, I'm assuming, right?
Just myself today, thanks.
Okay, raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do so affirm.
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session.
Good afternoon. Todd Dale for the applicant. I did attend the review session and heard the board's comments. I'll briefly respond to them now and then do any follow-up in writing. First, we will reach out to the tenant and have the car wash stations removed and provide photo proof of same to the board. I don't believe there are any spills at the site, but we'll double check and we'll get the documentation or response to Commissioner Shetta's question. With respect to the fire extinguisher, they've been installed. We're waiting on a inspection report, certification, whatever approval is needed from the fire department. I've been informed by the tenant and operator that that's pending, and as soon as it's available, we'll submit that to the board in response to the fire department's questions. And then in discussion, Chair, you had mentioned like the community board and their comments. We did appear once before the land use meeting. They didn't have any significant issues, but they did raise some questions about the design that they asked us to take a look at. And it's something that the operator was taking a look at it anyway. In brief, currently the plans show a enlargement to the northeast of the site, and there is an entrance door that would be near where the freezer, so it's in the northeast section of the building. And there was discussion at the community board about potentially relocating that a little bit more to the south and then providing landscaping all along the, the small portion of the boundary next to the lot to the north. And that's just something that the project architect and owner operator are taking a look at to see if they can relocate that door with the current design. If that is possible, we would submit the plans to the board for review, but essentially it's just the crux of it is a slight relocation of that door and additional landscaping. That's the discussion. And if that was available, then we would submit those plans to the community board and to the board again to review. But no other significant changes to the site other than the removal of the car washes, which I previously noted.
Yeah, if I seem to remember correctly from the previous hearing, this was something community board wanted, some landscaping in that area.
Right. So it's under review, and we're seeing that it's not just simply moving the door, because there's a freezer section, a walk-in freezer section, and a storage area. So they would need to do a little bit of interior changes too to some of like not the customer areas, but like the storage areas. But that's in review. So that is taking place while we're waiting the fire department inspection. And as I said, if that's possible and there are any changes, we'll get those submitted promptly.
It would be adding some landscaping along Utopia Parkway.
Yeah, the northeast section, there's like a little portion, like the building is a lot line building, but there is a little portion there. And currently there's some landscaping shown, but there's a door that's right there, like right up the lot line. And just shifting that a little to the south would allow some additional landscaping to the north lot, which we thought was a very reasonable request of the community board. So we're looking at that.
Okay.
Other than that, I believe those were the four main points that were raised. And we'll get those addressed and submitted to the board as soon as we can.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? All right. We do need to, let's go to the public first.
So the case that we're currently discussing is 46758 BZ, Volume 4, 17211 Northern Boulevard, Queens. Should you wish to comment on this application, please dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the webinar ID number 161-067-3359 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you will press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to comment on this application.
Okay. How much time, Mr. Dale?
Unfortunately, I don't know as of yet, because I was hoping to get a response to see if they had an inspection date set. So I would say at this point, we could be flexible with the board's calendar. Also, because we are waiting the fire department information, if the board prefers to keep this open rather than closing it, we're fine with that also, because this is an application for an amendment, an alteration. The term is still active, so we're not going to run into any violation issues. So we can be flexible with whatever the board wants as far as calendar and procedurally.
I would then definitely recommend that we calendar it for September. That'll give you plenty of time to resolve all these matters and correct the wrong. And maybe by the time you would have also met with the community board.
Possibly because they'll be back in session, so, you know, we can meet with them again, if needed. They may also then, if we submit the plan, they might be satisfied and move on to the next step. I don't know, but we'll be in touch with them about that.
Okay, let's then schedule for 14, 15, and do commissioners, do you want to close it or keep it open?
We have to wait for fire department still, right?
The only reason I'd say keep it open is because if they're making changes to the plans based on community board discussion in the meeting, then why not wait to see what they propose?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I don't think that there would be
Sure.
that much, but okay, we'll keep it open.
We have
Okay.
no objection. If I could just ask quickly, do you know what the submission date would be for the September 14th?
9/1.
But we can extend it for you if, with regards to fire department and community board.
Okay, because I was going to
All your
say,
other submissions, no, all your other submissions need to be made by September 1st, but anything related to community board and fire department can be after that.
just because of my personal schedule, is there a hearing after that in September?
October.
What?
You can do it October. That way you have complete sign off for everything from the community.
If the board's agreeable to that, I would say October just to be safe, and because of my own schedule, I know I'd rather not push things.
Submission, I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Mr. Dale. So the October 5, 6 would be September 22nd submission.
That works great.
Okay,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank
summer.
you.
Well, he's coming back.
I'll be back soon, but I will have a nice summer.
Appeals calendar, continued hearing items 2026-12A, 463 Bay Street, Staten Island.
This would be Mr.
I'm going to swear him in.
Mr. Rizzotti.
Good afternoon, Mr. Rosati. Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
Yes, I do. Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at the review session.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Ron Rosati for the applicant. I don't believe there were any items for me to address.
No, there were not. Thank you. Let's go to the public.
So the case that we're currently discussing is item number 14, 2026-12A, 463 Bay Street, Staten Island. Should you wish to comment on this application, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you will enter the webinar ID number 161-067-3359 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you will press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press star 9 to raise your hand, star 6 to unmute as you're calling in on the phone. And if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to comment on this application. We're going to close this?
And we'll schedule it for August.
Okay, no submission, correct?
No submission.
Okay, motion to close. Chair Shanda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, New cases on the appeals calendar, item number 15, 2026-13A and 2026-14A, 45 and 49 North Avenue, Staten Island.
This would be Mr. Dale, right?
Yeah.
Yes, back in.
Afternoon, Todd Dale for the applicant.
Raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this board and to respond honestly to board member questions?
I do so affirm.
Please state your name for the record and proceed to respond to the board's comments at review session. Thank you.
Todd Dale for the applicant. I did listen to review session. I don't believe the board had any questions. I just wanted to point out one item if I could. Am it possible for me to share the screen?
Sure.
All right, let me go ahead and share. And I believe, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out that this is currently the site plan of record. There was a slight change that was made by the architect, and we are going to submit those plans today. I don't think they'll change the board's review of the case, but I just want to point it out. It's right here. If you can see the new plan, they're just making a slight reduction to the rear yard, which would still be compliant, and doing this sort of little staggered on each of the buildings. But I just wanted to point that out, that we are going to be spending those plans, but it doesn't change anything. The width would be the same and all other bulk dimensions would be the same,
Okay.
just so the board can see that.
Mr. Dale, sorry.
Sure.
Where's 49? I'm sorry, where was 40? It said not in the application.
That's because it's two different. If I won't share again, but we have
You
two
have a
site
separate
plans.
thing. Okay,
We
never
have
mind.
two site
Sorry.
plans, and one side is marked not in, and one
Okay.
side's marked not in. So,
Okay, cool.
no, good catch.
All right. Any questions or comments? Let's go to the public then. And we have received the proof of hearing notice for the record.
Right, are you still waiting for DOT on this one? Yeah, I think so, right? Yeah. Yeah, well, what? The case that we're currently discussing is 2026-13A and 2026-14A, 45 and 49 North Avenue, Staten Island. Should you wish to comment on this application, dial 669-254-5252. At the prompt, you'll enter the webinar ID number 161-067-3359 and press the pound sign. At the next prompt, you'll press the pound sign only. Once you're permitted in, you'll press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute if you're calling in on the phone, and if you're in the Zoom room already, please raise your Zoom hand, which is the little hand at the bottom of your computer screen. Once you are recognized, you'll have 3 minutes in which to comment on this application.
Okay. We're just waiting for public.
Yeah, waiting for that to run out. Got 39 seconds.
Do you know when the next hearing is going to be scheduled with the community board? Or when is the next hearing that you will be appearing at?
We have not received any comments from the community board for this case. We did notify. I do know the community board does take a summer recess, and often on general city law applications, in my experience, this community board has waived comments before. I don't know what the status is, and they're on recess currently.
Okay. So what do you want to do?
I'm okay with closing.
Oh, that's a rescheduled hearings. Okay.
You want to close?
Yeah, I want to make a recommendation that we close and the record open for you to file your revised plan.
Right.
Motion to close, Chair Shonda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Sheta,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Great.
And-
Thank you.
Schedule this for August.
Great. Thank you. And now I'll return the favor and wish you a good summer.
You too. Take care.
Okay. We are now recalling the second, we're calling now these, second call cases. First item is item number 10, 2026-03, I'm sorry, 2026-03BZ, 116 Edgecombe Avenue, Manhattan. It was a decision item. Oh, sorry, should have done 7 first. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Too late, sorry.
Too late.
so we're starting with Edgecombe.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You
Pulled it
received
out of order.
anything?
No, we have not received, they said it's coming soon. We
Okay.
don't know if it's a
So
sign off or
we'll-
anything.
We'll schedule this for August.
Okay.
So deferred decision. Okay,
There's a Sandy who's here.
August.
Sandy, maybe she's here to review,
Item number 7. Item number 7, 964-87BZ, 786 Burke Avenue, the Bronx. This is a decision item.
Okay, so applicant did revise the statement of facts and did.
Is your
pro-
mic on? Is your mic on? No, so-
Can't hear me?
I have so much talking a little low.
I think what I was looking for a photo that shows that the banners have been removed. I don't think that has been provided. I didn't see it. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Donaldson?
Mr. Donaldson, are you there?
Sorry, he's having some mic issues. He's trying to speak, but
Okay.
Okay. Really?
Sure.
Yeah,
If you want to take a look here, this is the picture of the front of the building, the old picture.
yeah, no, but I do remember seeing a photo with the banners along the rear lot line.
That's the rear one.
Oh, okay.
And that's there at the side of the rear one.
Okay. All right, we'll just add that as a condition.
Okay.
And I also want to add, I'm satisfied with their statement with regard to the vehicles that did not have license plates being vehicles that are being worked on by their, that, from their neighbor who's used car selling those.
Okay.
Okay.
So do you want
hold
to call a vote?
Yeah, this is your thing.
I mean,
All right, so I want to make a motion to approve 10 years extension of term with the following condition, that no more than 10 parking spaces shall be made available for rent and shall be rented on a monthly basis, and remaining parking spaces will be used for by customers and for vehicles awaiting repair and pickup. No sales of vehicles will be permitted on the site, and signage shall comply with the underlying zoning regulations subject to DOB review.
So the motion to approve, Chair Shonda,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shabeta,
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown,
Aye.
Commissioner Shetta,
Aye.
Commissioner Yoon.
Aye.
Application has been granted.
Thank you, everybody.
This ends the public hearing for July 27, 2026.